Hey, welcome to Burn the Ladders. I don't know when I'm going to release this, but this is the first episode. So this is
Man,
our test episode. I
what
had to bring on my man, Brandon Byrd.
what an honor.
Yeah. Me and Brandon talk. I talk to Brandon more than most of my family members, probably. So
Me too. That's
if you,
that's a fact. I thought you were one of my family members. That's a fact.
yeah, Brandon is someone who is always down to listen to me, drone about training. Um,
Picked up a lot of wisdom from those talks. A lot of
yeah.
wisdom.
Likewise. So we've had it now close to I think how everything started with me and Brandon was way back when I was making West Side versus the World.
Yes.
I want to say this is like September of 2015.
Yes.
I'm with Louis in the back room, and he Louis didn't really understand Instagram and Facebook and all that. Like he kind of he understood that this thing existed and it happened,
Yeah.
but he he was showing me, he's like, there's this guy he said, there's this guy you need to talk to. Um, Louis also didn't understand quite what, like, what a documentary really was, either. So he's just like, oh, you know who you should talk to? And sometimes it would be like, oh, here's an old lifter or something. But on this case, he was like, oh, you know who you should talk to? And I'm thinking he's going to tell me about like some old dude from the gym that like is vital to the story. And he's just like, there's this black guy out in Pennsylvania in the middle of nowhere, and he's got these kids that box jump. And
I can't believe you
he,
said that.
yeah, well, like, if you knew Louis, obviously in the last sort of
Yeah.
decade, especially, Louis got he was always training jumpers, like
Yeah, that's
he
true.
was box jumps were a huge part of the gym. Obviously, there's a big one from AJ Dobson in the trailer. But like Louis was always proud of his gym's box jump record and everything. He said like I had an intern who jumped 63.5, and uh and so at the time, 2015, 2016, you had just like a fleet of kids jumping 60 plus.
Yes, I did.
Uh, so yeah, so he was like, oh, you need to go check this guy out. And Louis was kind of like, he was directing me to a lot of people at the time, and I was loving it. The same reason basically I'm doing a podcast. Like I could just call people up and leverage the fact that there was a camera and that I was a filmmaker, and so people would want to talk to me that otherwise probably wouldn't. But so I started following you on Instagram, and there was, all these 60-inch jumpers, and yeah, I knew nothing. A couple of years later, I went out to the gym and I saw you, and I saw that, like, there's a phrase, like a one stoplight town,
Yes.
that where I went out to, dude, there wasn't even a stoplight. It was like one four-way stop sign was, I remember, like the center of the town that you were in.
Yeah. No, no, middle of nowhere. Cornfields.
Yeah.
You'd think I'd
And
be in the city in the hood or something. I'm in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, and so Louis would always say, that, like, one of his big points of pride that people didn't pick up on, in his opinion, was that all the numbers of West Side, like 90% of the things that West Side was known for, were from people who were from Columbus. And he would always talk about, like, X number of world records in powerlifting are from within an hour's drive of Columbus. And his point was the people in Columbus are not genetically different than the people basically in any other part of the country. So if you have such a high frequency of excellent results, it has to be tied to the impact of a particular place or a particular coach or a particular system that just happens to be more popular in that area. So Louis would say, like, the truth of his results was all of the records that came from his guys from Columbus. And that was why he was saying, like, this guy's in the middle of nowhere. He's got all these kids box jumping. And when I went out there, I was like, this is insane, because that area, I was like, I drove through nothing but fields
You
and
saw
rolling
it.
hills and woods. Like it, you're a guy who has gotten flack for, and I promise I'll stop talking. You're a guy who's gotten flack on the internet for like cherry picking results and stuff, and it's like,
Yeah.
ain't a lot of cherries to pick out there.
No.
Like, you're turning every single, every grape on the branch into wine. So had to get you on to talk a little bit more about it. But so I've
Because people
talked
think I'm in
enough.
this big metro area that I got all the, I got all these, I'm handed these gifts of these athletes, but I'm not, this is not, the genetics are here aren't that great, it's just, I'm in cornfield area.
Yeah. You're in a place.
Literally, it's Jandal. If that place where you was at, I'm surrounded by this guy named Fred Jandal. He owns a turkey farm. He settled here, and he just raises turkeys. And he owns the most land in PA, and he has turkey farms and cornfield, and that's where I was nested in the middle of that.
Yeah.
you know.
Perfect. So the bird's nest. Uh,
Then he said the same thing when he came up here. He goes, "We were in Birdville, nowhere." That's what he said.
yeah. So yeah. So that's I say all of that and talk forever. I gotta get better at podcasting. Uh, I say all of that to just because I want to really hammer home that one of the things that really drew me to wanting to reach out to you was not just that you had videos of kids doing these crazy things, but that it wasn't all just one kid.
Mm-hmm.
It was, it was so many kids. And as I like scrolled through your Instagram and stuff, it was just like, it was seeing the same videos over and over again, year after year, with different kids.
Sure.
And from an area that, as I looked into it, was like, there's nobody out here.
No.
So again, it's, as Lou would say, like, is that luck or is that a system?
I think I had
That
five.
to me
I
is,
think I had 5 kids on a 70-inch box at that time. At that point in time, I had 5 on a 70, which was nuts. A bunch on a 68, 67,
mm-hmm,
bunch on a 66. It was just like, it was like West Side, man. Like one kid got 70, and they're like, God, we got to get 70, and they thought it was possible. We can get 63 easy. Like, it was just one after another. After the first one hit, everybody started doing it.
mm-hmm.
So it just came a thing. It was like we took pride in it as a facility.
Yeah. When, so I guess jumping off of that, how long was it until you started to see sort of that pattern of like really freaky type results start to develop?
That's a good question, man. It was like, well, what happened was that was like when I had this one kid, Dylan, who was pretty young, and he was 11, 12. But as he was getting towards high school, he started jumping. I mean, he went from 20 inches to 40 inches on a just jump. And then all of a sudden, like, people were seeing this, and they were decent athletes. They were jumping like 27, 26 inches. But then I had a formula. I the thing with me, I keep tweaking things, and I just kept tweaking the order and the type of the workout, the different little things. And then we just kind of we just kept doing it. We kept perfecting it, and then all of a sudden it was like this kid did it and that kid did it, and it was like they were coaching each other on how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, it was like something that, like, it just all of a sudden just flourished. I had kids come in there to go, I'm not leaving until I hit a 66 or a 70, and they would jump for a half hour and jump it. They would get it. Even the girls, I had girls doing 54 inches, 51, 54 inches. I had 2 girls jumping at 54. But once I knew that they did that, they was going to win states in track, and they pretty much just did that. So it was a validation of like their athletic. To me, that box jump is a validation of your athleticism 100%. To get your body on a 70-inch box or a 54, 57-inch box for a girl it takes so much athleticism and coordination to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something we take pride in,
Yeah.
And the whole thing started with Sim. Louis had a guy jump 63. I said, I always dreamt of having a kid go with 63. Like that was my thing. And I flew down to Louis' west side as fast as I could. I get how, and he had girls up on the 54. I said, you got to teach me how to do this. And that's why I came in contact with Louis. I said, dude, I never heard of anybody jumping this high in a box. So it's like, tell all, dude. So I kind of went back to the lab and kind of kept my own way of doing it, and we attacked it. We attacked that.
So your history is kind of interesting,
Oh,
because
very interesting.
again, you're out in the middle of nowhere,
Yeah.
but you started as an athlete. You were a football player, right?
Yep. I went to
And
Pittsburgh back in the day.
uh-huh.
I look like I just came out of there, but that's a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what happened is well, this is how I truly got into it. I was going to in my area. No college coaches is coming really to my area. You see where I'm at. There's not like your big suburban area. We got these great, African American athletes. You got some good farm boys, this country linemen that come out here every once in a while, but they ain't coming to see you. Yeah, we had VHS tapes. Great ones you had to send out. We had a bad record. I was pretty fast at track. I broke my school record. Well, there's a true story. Another two. I was running all through high school in track. I scored 1 point from freshman to junior year. And I told my brother was real fast. My brother ran a 10-400. He was quick, And we lived in Columbus, Ohio. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, ironically. And Pickerington, that people not know about. Pickerington, Ohio is right. It's maybe half hour from West Side. And West Side's doing is flourishing, and I'm over there. I didn't know nothing about West Side at the time. But my dad had moved us to New York State and to Pennsylvania. I loved Ohio too. I loved Columbus, Ohio. But I went down in Eastern Pennsylvania, and my brother, I had the worst. I was eating pizzas every day, and I was slow. I said, how am I not fast like you, my brother Marvin? And he goes, man, you got to start working out. You got to eat right, So I cut out all this soda, and I would run with sleds, and I did box jumps. I was doing dumbbell jumps on boxes for years. This is back in the mid-90s. No one was really doing that. That I knew about. What happened was the boxes weren't high enough. So I said, let me just weight myself down so I can make it more challenging. So I started doing dumbbell jumps back then. I've been doing dumbbell jumps for years, but people don't realize that. And I was doing these I think I was getting on a 42 with like maybe 30s or something like that back in the day, it's not crazy, but it got me faster. Doing my sprint work on my own, my sleds. I came back out my senior year. I went from a 12-second 100 to 10-9. And then I said, I can probably go D1, man. Because I'm looking at these guys on TV. I'm like, I'm as fast as those guys, but they might not recruit me. I'm just go up there. And so I went to the campus. I met Walt Harris, and he loved walk-on. So I actually had a scholarship too. I had a scholarship like this little tiny school in Buffalo, Canisius. I went on a visit. It snowed like 3 feet that my visit. I'm like, oh God. And it's Buffalo though. So there's tunnels to go. You don't have to go outside because it's so damn cold. The quarterback's Jeep got carjacked the night before. So I'm thinking, I'm going up here in the hood. It's cold. They had to plow the practice field off. I'm like, I can't handle it. They just carjacked the quarterback's Jeep. So I'm going to try to walk on a bigger D1. So that was the best thing I ever did. So I take the tour, and Coach Harris, I walk in Pitt Stadium. I've never seen a Jumbotron going on. There's ESPN. I'll never forget it. I said, this is crazy. I've been in these little high school cities. And Pitt was like a traditional bowl stadium. Had one of the first Jumbotrons in America, I think, back in the 90s. Historic stadium. And then they take us to the locker room. I see Sean Gilbert from the Rams in there. He's working out in the off season. I'm like, who's an NFL player? And God dang. it's Curtis Martin. I meet Curtis Martin. I'm like, this is awesome. They were just happening to be working out with Buddy because Buddy's the man. I didn't know that. So then Walt goes, well, here's Buddy. You're going to love him. He's the best. And I didn't realize when he said that how good Buddy Morris was. And then I said, what a strange name, Buddy. Like, so, but, he shook my hand and everything. And little did I know that changed my life right there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was already quick. So I remember we did 40s one day to make the team. And I was like one of the fastest. Like I was on the squad, man. They're like, damn, well, you flew, And then years
what'd you run?
I believe it wasn't crazy. It was 4.5 low, I think it was. So this goes in the story. Like 4.5 mid, it was good. So we start training and we're doing box squats and we're doing chain. I'm like, what are these chains for? Like, what? This is glute ham? Like, what the hell is the hyper? I'd never seen none of this stuff. And did doing plyos. I was doing box jumps, but not like, And so we started training. I'm like, damn, I feel fast. I'm getting fast and fast and fast. And come like the end of my career, I got down to 4.37, dude. I said, if I would have knew about this type of training when I was in high school, I would have had 1 million scholarships. And I had all this, and even on the technical side, like my receiver coach, Coach Michigan, he's an amazing coach. Coached like probably 20 pros. Coach of the Bengals, Coach Chad Johnson, T.J. Mazada, Coach Brookhart, Coach 15 pros, Coach Larry Fitzgerald. Like, I never forget Michigan goes, it's like you've never been coached in your life. So on the technical side, I had no instruction. I was raw. I think that kind of helped. Yeah, I'm a couple behind. I was behind All Americans. I played mostly special teams, but I had a great experience. And I said, if I could go home and teach this, I'm running a 4.3. If I could teach this to kids in my area, they would get. I don't want no kid in my area to have talent and fall through the cracks like I did. I felt like I fell through the cracks. So I said, I want to go teach this and see if I can get these kids scholarships with this type of training. And it's funny, towards the end of school, one of the kids I met on my college dorm floor, Matt Schleishman from Cincinnati, Ohio, the Cincinnati Madman, we called him. So Pittsburgh's known for the Permane brothers with the meat and the fries and the coleslaw and stuff, and there's the original fries, where you get a pound of fries for like $3. Iron City beer. So the guy put on like 50 pounds. And then he goes, Byrd, I want to be a fireman when I get done. I got to lose weight. I got to train. Like, he's like, you train with Buddy, train me. This is the first guy I trained. He goes, dude, I want to do what Pitt football did. And I put him to the paces, man. The dude lost 40 pounds. He got real fast. I wasn't clocking speed, but I had no stopwatch. But he got fat. I was spreading him. I was doing plyos. I was doing glute ham. I was box squat. I was doing chain squats. Everybody, I was doing it in the rec gym. Everybody's like, what is this doing? So he lost all that weight. He made the fireman. And I said, I'm going to start doing this when I get home. Mm-hmm. I went to little school, Southern Lehigh. I went to my whole high school. They said, I was going to coach football. They said, I got my guy. They brushed me off at my own high school. So I went to he said, go to the school next door. I went to the little tiny school in the country, like on the other end of the town. Suddenly, it's called, you was in Northwestern Lehigh. I went to the Southern Lehigh. Was where it all began, dude. I went there. I go to practice. There's these little tiny kids. They were like 140 pounds. They were running probably like a 5.7. The coach, they couldn't catch. The coach goes, are you sure you want to do this? This is the first day. Because he knew how bad they were. I said, I want to do it. I want to make someone. I want to develop. I want to take someone from the bottom to the top. I want to take them. I want to see if I don't want to have a freak. I want this to be hard. So I want to challenge.
What year is it?
This is 2002. 2002. That's when I first started. This is when it all began. And I had this guy named Frank Lawler and this kid Mike Soden. And lo and behold, at the end of their career, dude, Frank, they both ran track like I did. They looked up to me. They're like, I want to do Byrd track and play football. I think Frank he led the area in yards per catch. He had like some crazy. They just threw phase to him. He had like 40 yards per catch. Led the whole state, I think he did. and Snowden was right behind him. And then sadly, the coach let me go because sadly the coach went to another school. He was too far of a drive. He went to Quakertown. I didn't want to go down. So with the Central, so I still coached those kids on the side because they were sad when I left. The new coach didn't hire me back, so I still coached them on the side. I had another school named Central Catholic, Allentown Central Catholic, where it's kind of famous. If you know Christian McCaffrey now, his dad is Ed McCaffrey. That's where he went.
Uh-huh.
That's one of the famous people who came out of Central Catholic High School, Allentown, and they've had a couple state championships. This is a popular school, 2,000-point basketball scorer. So I had a kid named Horton. So I had all those guys, and they actually met, and I took a whole second off their 100-meter time. Like they did what I did. They went from like 12 to like 10, like 11 flat. And the only person they lost to this freak named Austin Scott, who was the Saquon before Saquon was Saquon. He was better than Saquon in high school. No doubt about it. He rushed for 4,000 yards in high school. Only kid they could not beat was him. And so come to go to college, Frank Lawler went to Wake Forest. This is my first three guys. He went to Wake Forest. Mike Studden went to Florida State. So I remember until I forgot there was a guy that went to Florida State. Mike Studden went to run hurdles at Florida State. He has a track record for years. And then suddenly is where I train most of my track guys now. But that record had their track record stood for maybe 20 years until I came back around. I came back around to the school. And then David Horton went to Richmond. This is my first three guys. So I'm going to start doing this. So funny story. I met my buddy, Zach, and his I didn't have no facility, I'm poor. I don't.
Yeah.
So Zach had the money. His dad, his grandpop invented. They sold concrete because I'm in a concrete bed, limestone. Mm-hmm. They sold concrete to the whole nation. So he got rich off that. They had racehorses. They had money, millions and millions and millions. So he built a gym just to train his brother. And what he did, this is interesting too. He went to California to meet Marv Marinovich, who was trained by Dr. Yessis. And Marv Marinovich had this thing against weights. He was all like velocity based before velocity was velocity. Like McGinty kind of. They had the machines, the accelerators. So Zach had these accelerators. He said, "Byrd, training, like, come and help me out." And I had to convince them that weights actually made you faster. I said, I trained a buddy and who trained with Louis. That's when I started really studying the conjugate system. Because I didn't know where the little buddy had got it from. But little buddy would sneak off to Columbus, Ohio, and he would sneak out to Penn State to learn from Vladimir Zazorsky. Yeah. And he was the Russians, and he brought Charlie Francis down to train us for speed. I didn't realize that. There's this guy from Canada.
So you were... I didn't know until this conversation here that, like, you're actually, like, from Columbus.
Yes. I lived in Columbus for 7-8 years, yes.
Yeah. So you're a kid from Columbus who then, walks on where Buddy Morris just happens to be. As Buddy's going down the rabbit hole of, of all that influence of Louis, all that influence of Charlie Francis.
That's the time where Buddy went to West Side, and Dave Tate brought Louis to Pitt, and Louis undressed him down and said, "You don't know nothing about training." And that's when I came to Pitt. And was right at the same time. You continue. Yeah. You're kind of
Yeah, that's just so, like, there's so much within that story that, number one, like, because I went to West Side for the first time when I was 12.
Yeah.
In '99, I met Dave. Dave came down and did seminars in my dad's garage and stuff, and so I have, like, this similar sort of dynamic of, like, I just happen to meet these people and happen to be exposed to all of this. And it was all just sort of normal things to me.
Correct.
And you have no idea way back then that, like, oh, the internet's going to happen and we're going to do stuff like this. And
right.
People, all of a sudden, all these things are going to be trendy. But like it also keys in on a thing that whether like I'm talking to coaches or talking to people about like obviously like film and stuff, like that idea of a lot of people, I think in small towns especially, and like I'm from Tallahassee, which is not a big place. It's, everyone there has at least the complex that it's a small town. But that whole thing of like people tend to resent where they're from. People tend to try and look down kind of and belittle their own backstory.
Yes.
Like, and some people, and I think it happens to be a lot of the people who kind of break out and become successful. Like, I don't think that you can be successful to a certain level without embracing your story.
Right.
And so, like, you're, you know, you picked up all of these elements of your story that only in retrospect, it's only when you get like a decade or two down the line that you start to go
Yeah.
like, oh man, all these cool things happened to you. All
Yes.
like you were in the right place at the right time so many
Right.
times over.
I never forget. I was on the field and Charlie Francis out there. I didn't know who it was at the time. I didn't know how big he was. Let's say that. Let's say that. He said Charlie Francis, Charlie this. I'm thinking like, okay, whatever. And he's going to West Side. We're doing conjugate, and I'm like, okay, whatever. It's unique out. But I'm actually trying to impress Charlie. I remember out there on the field running, trying to impress Charlie Francis and Buddy Morris. And then years later, I got to train at West Side. So I might be I haven't checked this. I think it's a cool thing, but I might be the only person to ever train in front of Louis Simmons, Buddy Morris, and Charlie Francis watching them. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I don't think everybody's done. Have all three of them people done that. And so that's kind of like, so after I got to school, I never forget. Buddy Morris had these workout manuals that these college kids get. I get them now. I'm like these. I'm like these things are terrible. They're missing this and this and this and this. It's not that I'm being cocky. Or thinking my system the best, but I'm seeing this. You can't. There's no one way to do this. But I'm looking at these college manuals. I'm saying this kid doesn't work. But I know good coaches like you across the nation. Bidney, I've met Louis, I've met Charlie. I mean, I just know what's right and wrong. I'm looking at these college manuals. I'm like, these are just terrible. But that manual, it was about an inch thick. Man, that thing was that got to be down the road. That was my program. I ran that program because
Mm-hmm.
it was clean. It had the speed, it had flexibility, it had diet, mobility. That I still have that to this day. So then I started doing my deep dive. Where's this dynamic ever come from? Where's this max ever come from? Then I started going toward the sources. I went to Louis. But it took me years later till maybe 2015. Now Charlie passed away. I couldn't go to him no more. But it took me. I wanted to refine everything. I was trying to refine my speed, my strength program. Oh, going back to Marv Berendich thing. So they had these Marv invented these accelerators. But they're isoconnect. So when you push out, you're pushing against air resistance. So Zach had that part of it. This is interesting too, because there's a documentary on this 30 for 30 for the Remembrance Project, and the accelerators are in there. And so we would talk to this guy. Guy was brilliant but nuts. So Zach was getting results with these things, and Marv was like, "You can't be doing weights." And I said, "No. We gonna combine weights with these isokinetic machines and these super cats, and it's gonna be ridiculous." And we would train. At the time, I was actually the insurance agent, by the way. I was a financial advisor, but I was coaching football too. And we would train, and I didn't know clients because I was this is the beginning. I was making like $600 a month. People thought you start out, you're just a millionaire or whatever, but that's not true. So we would train, and we would sit up. We stop at 11. We would sit up and write programs all night. Do research, read some West Side books, Charlie's books, sit up there, piece it together, try it for a couple of weeks, tear it apart, do it again. Every 3 months we would change something, and to this day I've changed something every 3 months. Like, as Lee would say, if your program doesn't evolve, your athletes are going to evolve. And I was never satisfied. We get an inch on a vertical at 3 months. That's not good enough. Let's try to get 2. Let's try to get 3. Let's try to, etc. So we would sit down, program and train all day, and we never got no sleep. And then so Marv saw we said we're getting results with these doing both, but Marv got mad at us because he didn't like us using weights with his program. With the machines, he's like, you're making a mockery of my stuff. He hung up on the phone screaming, and I said, no, this is the best way with this conjugate stuff and the ice, because there's still camps out on the West Coast that use this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the accelerators and the supercats. So I was testing. I'm like, it was okay, but wasn't once we threw the conjugate with it, it was nuts. But then I convinced him it was actually better. We kind of faded that stuff out. We faded that isoconnect stuff out, but that was another thing. So we started making the accelerators too. We sold them. We sold those accelerators too. So that's why I started training. Then I started getting the following. That was my laboratory. That was my test subject. I was seeing how it was a game to me. It was like, how fast can I get these kids? How strong can I get them? How explosive can I get? What's the measurable? What's the craziest measurables? Then it came to how many D1s I could get. How many? Because I was like, I remember the first. I just want to get one D1 kid. Because I had those kids earlier, but I didn't have them for a while because I was kind of here and there. But then I said, let me start getting one. Then it turned to 2, then 3 and 4. Just started to happen because the results were there, and we were just experimenting. And finally, I went to West Side. I went to see Buddy because Buddy at the time was let go from Pitt. He went to Buffalo. He was training privately. He went to the University of Buffalo actually. And I said, let me reconnect with Buddy, And we went up to his center, and I remember this changed my life too. He said, Byrd, you got to go see Louie. This is about 2014 or something like that. He said, you know all this stuff, but you still got to go see Louie. Tell him I sent you. So that was the invitation, And I literally, I think I called up West Side. I'm coming down. We came down maybe 3 weeks later. And I went to West Side the first time. It was amazing. I got in there. I walk in there. I kind of did. I kind of, the thing of West Side is you got to wear Chuck Taylors. Like I bought some Chuck Taylors. I never really wore Chucks. So I bought my own Chuck. Walked in there with Chuck Taylors. I walked in there and said, oh, you Louie. And he was shorter than I thought he was. I didn't think he was that short. I was like, wait a minute. I thought there's short guys and there's all these big, massive men. It was like,
yeah, the first time I met Louie, like, I don't know, I was 12, so odds are he was still taller than me, but yeah, similar thing. Of all I had seen videos of him, I'd seen this,
he's got to be 5'4", 5'5".
Yeah, he was, he's listed at like 5'5", but just knowing how aging works, 5'5" at 30 might at 60 be 5'3".
Right.
Like he was a little bridge troll of a man by then.
I remember getting in there and he's like, I talked to him. I sat him down. I'm a visual person. I like taking notes, but so I take video everything. So I can watch the videos back, and I like listening to podcasts. That's why I read, but I browse. I don't sit down and cover the whole book. I go to the table of contents. Okay, I want to look at this. Let me look at that. Then I just skip around. But if I have a video, I can sit there and then be engaged. So I videoed him. He laid down this whole conjugate system, and this is how I do it. And he talked about sleds and sled walking and the jumps and max effort. I was like, wait a minute, y'all max out every week? I'm like, this is crazy. Because before what kind of Buddy's thing I was doing dynamic effort, but I would do a 4-week wave. That's that's really why I do a 4-week wave to this day.
Uh-huh.
I do a 4 because Buddy and Louie was doing 5-week, I think, initially. Then he went down to 3.
Louie was doing, yeah, he was doing, way back, he was doing basically just straight linear programs, and then he started, adding in more of the sort of Bulgarian element
Yep.
with frequent maxing and
So
lots of heavy.
so early on,
And then
Buddy
it
Morris,
was 5 and then 4, then down to 3.
then 3. Buddy Morris had a linear thing because I don't think he bought it the max ever. It's hard to wrap your head around. I got these athletes gonna max out. Come on, dude. We got to do all this running, jumping. So I could see why he couldn't do it fully, because we ran a lot at Pitt. Like, by the way, we ran like Charlie was in that tempo running. I mean, Buddy was in that tempo running, and Charlie was in it too. Man, we ran a lot of tempo runs, boy. Like the volume that freaking Ben Johnson did, like 2,000 meters, like it was nuts. And so he couldn't really do it like that, So he had a limit. We had 60%, 70% block, 80%, and we would shut it down. In my program early on, we would shut it down. But all the time I was doing diamond effort. But I went to there. I was like, man, I got to West maxing out, but changing exercises, okay. Like I never really deadlift there too. He taught me how to deadlift, which was my favorite now. And so like I did a little deadlift demo on me. I just put me in the chair deadlifts. I'm like, I can't move the bar, like it arched up, like it. Then he told me to talk to everybody in the gym. I remember there was Big Joel Spiegel. It was max out deadlift day. I could not believe it. He pulled probably like 900 pounds off the pins.
Chris.
Amy Weisberger was in there. Older Amy Weisberger, talked to her.
Oh yeah, Amy.
And then God, what was the one guy? Jeremy, is that his name? Big dude, big country dude, about 300. Around that time, I forget his name, but anyway, he was probably one of the best heavyweights they had at that time. Him and Spiegel, and then there was this guy, his intern Joe. I never forget this man, and he knew I was doing sports. He goes, man, you need to go. Louis was like, you need to go in that bell squat. That's what you need to be in, bro. Joe took me that bell squat, bro. I think they put on about, I've never been in this thing before. I'm like, what the hell? I didn't know. I'd never seen it in the videos. I never seen him talk about it. So I went there. That was one thing when I went there. I was like, what the hell is this thing? That was my first introduction to bell squat, my favorite machine of all time. And they threw me in there. They put in 600 pound there. They said, Byrd, walk for 3 minutes. I started, I'm like, okay. Then about 30 seconds in, I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to stop too, because I was laughing out of the gym like be a punk. So I'm like, damn. Then they go, all right, 3 minutes is up. All right, get these kettlebells, do some RDLs in there with the weight on still. I'm like, oh, what? Then they said do some cleans. Man, I crawled out of there. I was sore for 3 weeks, dude. But then I said, dude, this is gonna help my sprinters out. I gotta have this machine. And we bought that thing that day. And the second time at the West Side, when I came on my own, I bought one that day at West Side. I bought it there. Said I gotta have this thing because these marches are like ridiculous. And he was telling me that's how I got people to. He'd have coaches come in, Lou would say, and they would jump, and then they would get in the bell squat. They would. Then 5 minutes later, they would jump. They would jump a couple inches higher. And I'm like, okay, I gotta have this thing. Like that's crazy. So like that's how you got the people in the boxes. That makes sense. It's this belt squat. I think it's a major factor to it. Because I was doing the plyos, I was doing kind of right lifting, but I wasn't maxing out. So after that, I went home and I tried to. I didn't want to get too far. I wanted to make, like, a lot of people take West Side and they change it. And I said, this guy's got the recipe. He had a sprinter named George Nichols. He went from 10.5 to 10 flat. Trained Butch Reynolds, a world record holder in 400 before Michael Johnson. And there was a girl named Kylie there. Kylie Goldsmith, friend of mine. A girl, that was the girl he was talking about that jumped in the high-ass box and was a track girl. And I know he would never say her name, but I met her, and one of the best athletes I've ever seen. She goes, that girl deadlifts 400 pounds. Ain't nothing for me to get a track girl to do 400 pounds of deadlift and a meet. Straight and stiff-legged conventional. I'm like, what? Jumped on. They said she eventually jumped on the 40 inches vertical. But Christina Manning was there. Christina Manning is now Christine Clemens. She won the 100-meter national hurdle title at Ohio State and took second in the 100, ran 11 flat. Had one of the, and then she's a professional now, made the Olympics. I went to the track, one of the fastest starts I've ever seen. There was a track coach there, Joel Brown. He's still the hurdle coach there. 10-year pro. He goes, Bird. He goes, you know everything you know about speed because you know you've studied Charlie. You know that your speed stuff is good. He said, are you doing Louis stuff? He goes, that's all you need to do. I didn't get that from him. He didn't give me no advice. He said, you already know what you need to know.
Yeah.
But he validated West Side. He took his sprinters to West Side. People didn't know that. The Ohio State's going to West Side, you know. If Louis got sprinters there and he's trained world champions, why should I change all not do West Side and water it down? Why should I water it down? It's already he took it from Olympic lifting, world class Olympic lifters, and world class sprint track and field. He combined the two, and so why would I change the two when I'm training speed? A
I
lot of
think
people want to water it down.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people like there's a great lesson in that what you just said is that a lot of people.
He just wants you to learn how to apply it differently. You know, I like people. It's okay to apply. It's good to apply it differently because like Goodman and you apply it's different, but it's applied with the same principles.
Yeah,
A lot of these training coaches come down and they throw things valuable out of it, and they're not going to get
yeah.
the same
Well,
results.
it's before you can apply it, you have to understand it, and so
The
I think a
vast,
lot of people they try to take. There's sort of like two approaches. You can either take a piece. You take a small piece and you go like I'm going to try and understand this tiny piece. Like I'm going to take an exercise and I'm going to take that exercise. I'm going to put it into my thing. And that small change you can get your head around and you can gauge the effect of it. Or, and this is what I think a lot of people would be well served to do, especially early on, is you go, I'm going to apply their whole thing the way that it is.
that's what I
Like
did.
I'm gonna run the template for months,
That's what I
and
did.
I'm going to slowly come to realizations along the way of like, oh, that's why he does this way.
Yep.
Once
I
you can like speak that language, then you can go, now I'm going to change things with understanding and hindsight.
yep.
And now I'm going to really understand what and why I'm changing. That's when you can like speak the language. That's when you're fluent in
Yeah.
Luanese, as people.
So what I did is I went back home. I wrote down what I saw on video, and I said, and so back in the day, Zach gave me 5 athletes that I could do. So what I did is I made the base program, but I manipulated too. But there was 5 athletes I could touch and no one could touch because they're my guinea pigs. That I when I what the experiments I did with them eventually to the actual basic program. The principles that I learned that worked, they went that. Louis taught me a lot of Louis taught me about a lot of jumping too, because people don't realize Louis, you know, he really studied Yuri Veroshavsky. That was like him, Milsif, like those guys. Like he said, used to say, I should stand on the heaven, the shoulders of giants to see the heavens. Like those guys were giants, dude. So I'm not. Again, I can't change a lot. He's talking to the experts that invented this stuff. Milsif and Veroshavsky, like the guy that invented the plyos. So he kind of taught me how to do jumps and what jumps to do, like seated box jumps and standing box jumps and broad jumps and all types of plyos. Like he gave me like ideas. But then when I went to the Russians and kind of looked at Veroshavsky stuff, and I took his stuff. I went to the source. I always go to the source. That's what Buddy Moore did. He went to, so I built my jump program with that. But when I went home, I had, never forget it. I had Bryn Doherty. She's one of my track girls. Who was a short, stocky girl from Palmerton, who I now have a state champion from there. I just had a state champion, 3-time state champion from that school. But Bryn was a long jumper sprinter. I took her long jump from 15 feet to 18 feet. I had a talented girl named Lindsay Bauer. She was the third one I did West Side with. Was one of my, those are 2 of my track girls that first hit 300-pound squat, by the way. And then Brenda's not supposed to be in the state finals. All of a sudden, she's going 15s, 16, 17, 18 feet. She's ahead of Lindsay Bauer. I said, this stuff is unbelievable. This girl could knee jump 20 inches off her knees and knee jump with 145 pounds on her back. like stuff that Lou, like those are jumps I'd never even thought of because he got that from Polish dance training. And then uh so Bryn, that was like I got to start doing this stuff. And then Nick Sharga was the one. Nick Sharga,
Mm-hmm.
I had him as a young kid. He was 10th grade. And Louis would talk about these stories about like this linebacker John Kerr, I think it was.
Yeah.
He with him, and he went away and came back and got cut. And he went from a 4.6 to 4.4 and ran it in chucks and ran the fastest 5.10.5 and vertical 40 and like Nick was gonna be my guy. And then years later, it was Joe DeFranco had Brian Cushing. He had the West Side from Skinny Bastards, and Cushing was his guy brought up to the ranks. Nick was I didn't know when Nick. So I just trained Nick like kind of my old pre-West Side. I was doing linear and dynamic effort. I went to West Side. I said I'm gonna do West Side because he was at a point where he had just torn the ACL, and he had come off rehab, and he took a year off of training. So I said, this guy, I had him so long. He comes 4 days a week. He's my guinea pig. Nick was a tough guy, a wrestler. He was a regional champ, district champ, but tough guy, but slow. He just needed speed. He was a guard, and he was a defensive tackle. And he goes, I want to play D1. I said, oh, what at D tackle? I said D tackle. I can't get to 300 pounds. We only weigh 185, dude. But I can probably get 40 and get you fast. So I went to work on him, dude, and he went from little. I started now during not before Max ever got him down about 4.9. Knocked about 5/10 off. So that is stuff that Louis talks about, which seems amazing, but I did not change it. So when I went to full template, the experiment on him, and he was the first guy, which I was doing deadlifts the first week, max out. Then I was doing squat max out, good morning max out, then repeat it, then dynamic 50, 55, 60, right back. Do it and implemented the jump program. Do it. People said you. I remember there's a famous coach, Kyle. I won't say no name, but he said you can't mix Charlie Francis with Webster. You can't do that. That's where and Charlie and they said you're gonna fail. I did it, dude. I did it with him. So we were doing our max effort sprints, plyos, met balls. I knew what I kind of understood it. I understood what the Lou would say train optimal. I knew what the optimal levels for lifting was. I knew it was for jumping. I knew it was for sprinting. I knew what the body could handle and recover by the next couple days. 43 hours, 72 hours, he would say. I had it down. I would call Louis every time. I would call Louis every week. I promise you. My mother, I would call him. I said, Louis, does this work? I would run it by him. Because I wanted to understand it. Like you say, people don't understand it. They don't dive deep enough. I read the books. I was watching videos. And I remember maybe 6 months into it, he goes, Byrd, you got it. I was telling him that you got it. You're dead on. Like you know it now. You understand that. So that was my validation that I understand it. And he was getting results. He went down. I got him up from he started at a 330. Once I had him from a 285 squat to a 440. Once I started West Side, he got to 660. 660. His vertical it went from a 19 to a 34. He was about to dunk because this guy cannot jump the same. And then he ran a 5.10.5. He ran a 4.05, weighing 235. And then he ran. I think he brought him 10 feet. Mm-hmm. And then I never forget. He went to this little D2 school, Virginia Wesleyan. He showed up there. He turned down Mount Union. I wanted him to go to Mount Union, but Penn State was looking at him. That's what I'm like. That's not a huge fan of Penn State. They had a gem on their hand. Like, as linebacker, you should take this kid because that's what he wanted to do. And he could move like no other. He could play the whole field. He could play safety, linebacker, D line, whatever he wanted to. He was nasty. And then he could do a full split too. By the way, we did flexibility too because conjugate, you're doing everything at the same time. You're doing agility, ability, flexibility, strength, speed, everything. We had it all down. And then he was so good at Wesleyan. The coach was like, why the hell are you here, dude? Actually, he had the only full scholarship in school history. They said, we're not going to you're the first and the last. That's how good he was. He led the nation in tackles, had 3 or 4 sacks. He was going to be All-American. They stopped playing him because they thought he was going to leave. He didn't want to leave, but they said, you're too good to be here. You're gonna leave. You're gonna be here 4 years. So just we're not gonna play you no more. Stop talking to him. He came home again. We did more West Side, and by the time we came home after the first semester, dude. We did West Side from I had him 24 straight months, dude, and then I had another 8 months after that. And then after the 8 months, he was ridiculous, dude. He walked out the temple. Coach Matt Rule, I love him to my life. I love that guy. He goes, man, you're not leaving here till you commit to Temple. And Temple was a horrible team. This is a good story too. And so I said, Nick, you might as well roll with this guy. This guy loves you. And he said, I'll never forget it. He said, Nick, I play the best guy. I don't care if you're on scholarship, you're walk on. A lot of these coaches lie to these kids. They say, I'm gonna play you and this and that, and you get there and they don't live up to their name. This guy, he lived to his name. So Nick got down there. They were amazed how fast and explosive he was. They sat him down. Coach Scott was at Penn State. They sat him down and asked him what the training was. And he laid down my conjugate version. I went down to visit. I came down there, bro. Byrd, what's up? Like, how you doing, man? Like, I'm coming down to ask questions to them because me, I'm a humble guy. I'm always seeking knowledge. I want to see if I can learn from them. I'm asking them questions, but they're like trying to ask me questions. They turn it around like, Byrd, like, what do you do? Like, what do you do? What's your squat like? What's your running like? Is this okay? Are we doing this right? I get down there. There's sleds out there. There's med balls out there. There's 2 ATPs there. I was like, wait a minute. They got they have the old school power lift racks with no pan pegs. So they had dumbbells down there permanently with bands attached to them, chains there. Boxes there. I'm like, okay, they done bought into this Nick Sarga thing. Guess what happened to Temple? They went from like 2 wins to like 10-1. I never forget. They beat Penn State with a young Saquon Barkley because I work with Saquon Barkley too. People, that's another story. That's why the people. If you watch Saquon Barkley train, by the way, I trained Whitehall High School, where he went to high school at. Again, there's Parkland High School and there's Whitehall. And it's the battle between the farm fields. It's a battle between the farm fields, what they call it. Mechanicsburg Road. But anyway, that we were box squatting. That's why today, if you see him training, he don't Olympic lift, he box squats. If you pay attention to that, nobody box squats. That's not a common thing. When you see him doing it, that's because we did it. But anyway, Nick was they beat a young Saquon Barkley's Penn State. They went only time they lost, it was Notre Dame, dude. I'll never forget. I went to the bowl game. Temple was ranked. It was nuts. Matt Rule was like the toast of the town. They had red lights they had green lights on the city buildings. This because the Eagles won Super Bowl. They had red lights on the skyline. For Temple, that never happens. Matt Rule, man. He said, Byrd, you've done a great job. I want you to train my daughters one day. Like, you've done a great job with Nick. The Browns coach said, I've never seen anything like this, dude. And then I went to the bowl game in Annapolis, Maryland. I had my West Side shirt on. They didn't know who I was. They go, you're Byrd. You don't need to check your credentials. Go in. So it was cool. They do my West Side shirt. They just let me in the game, man. It was wild. Mm-hmm. But they see the dreadlocks probably.
Yeah.
So I trained. I basically influenced the whole college. And Matt Rule, it changed his life because now he went to Baylor, turned that program around, probably did the same training. And Baylor was in the toilet, got them to 10-1. Then got hired to the Carolina Panthers. So, but it was Nick Sarga was the experiment, dude. He was my Frankenstein. He as sadly, and Matt Rule left, Coach Graham came there and they changed the offense, put him on the bench. Spread offense. There's no fullback. He was number one fullback in the country. I think it was a fullback in Florida State. He was behind everybody. He was ahead of everybody else. Going to be a draft pick. Killed his draft stock. He got a tryout with the Raiders and the Giants. It was ironically he had a tryout with the Giants with Saquon. It was them two together. It was wild. And I made a video with the same Giant scout talking to him. The same video on my Instagram. If you watch it, and me doing. There's old clips of it, but it was pretty cool seeing that two guys from the same.
Did they overlap their training with you?
Well, you know what? No, because here's what happened. When I was training Whitehall School, and the coach was Trisciani. He was an Elon. He is a pure football coach. He hated because Pennsylvania they get paid about 10 grand. You cannot do it full time. So he did not like the teacher aspect. He said, I can't. I love coaching high school. I just hate this teacher stuff. He was a gym teacher. It wasn't even that hard of a for him to do, but he couldn't stand it. So he went to Villanova, and when that happened, the O coordinator took over. Gilbert, who's Saquon's coach, he had this guy who's a speed coach before me. So he brought him in, and I was it. I didn't get to train him for his last 2 years, sadly. But but Saquon loved the footwork I gave him, and he would tell me, he said, "Byrd got my footwork right," But so that's what happened. I had Sharga then, but they did train a couple sessions together. They did have it was pretty crazy to see them two on a belt squat with 14 plates on there squatting it. It was just nuts. Walking in the belt squat with like freaking 700 pounds on that thing. I think the thing just almost snapped,
Yeah.
So it was like pretty cool, but they would end up being on the same team. It would have been very storybook if he been the fullback and he been the tailback. That would have been super storybook. But can't have it all. So after that, I started rolling. I began. Sadly, my partner let me. We parted ways, and Byrd Sports started in 2016. It was actually the best thing that happened because I had ideas. I couldn't evolve. They were holding me. They wouldn't let me do. They wouldn't let me experiment like I wanted to. At a certain point, I was always experiment with the different type of lifts and variations and order and plyos, and they took away my 5 people. I couldn't do that no more. So it was actually great because now I could do my experimentation with everybody, young, old, new, and then it really took off. And then that's where you see that now. I was speaking the jump variations. I conjugate my jumps too. I conjugate my sprints too. Everything is conjugate. I think, and people don't know they're doing conjugate, but they're doing conjugate because everybody switches exercise. But I rotate my jumps like I rotate my lifts. I don't know the way people do that, but like I got 1,000 jumps. When I went to West Side, I wrote down variations of jumps. I wrote them down. There was like 1,000 jumps, and I started keeping records on each one. But I said I can't do this. Your broad jump is a record. It's a broad jump. Your vert's a vert. Your hurdle hops a hurdle. All that stuff is in your box a box. I had records. So I mean, Lindsay Bauer, she took her 7 years. I trained her. She didn't do it. She had a new jump after 7 years of training her. That's how I operate. So that's how I got those 70-inch box jumps, dude. I was conjugating my jumps. I was rotating exercises until I remember Maddie Trout, one of my fastest sprinters. I took her from a 12.700 to a 12 flat. She was number 1 in Pennsylvania for the whole time her junior year until this freak of nature came out of my buddy Brian Campbell, his daughter from Harrisburg. And I didn't know him at the time, but now we're friends now. He's at LSU. She won New Balance Nationals. She won 8 sprint titles, 100, 200, and 2 national titles. Freak, 6'2", freak of nature. But Maddie's trying to beat her. I remember she was jumping this jump mat and it wasn't cutting it, so we buttoned on the box jump. Came back to the jump mat. Her jump was 21. I remember. Wasn't moving. Let me just conjugate this jump. Let's come back around. We do all these different jumps: seated box jumps, standing, depth jumps. Came back, do approach box jumps. I never forget when she hit. I remember Lindsay Bauer had the jump record. It was 51 inches. He hit 54. Maddie jumped and hit that 54-inch box jump. I was like, damn, she's gonna kill it this year. That's what I knew. It was coming right out of COVID, actually. Then she went over that jump mat. I said, we haven't done this thing in a while. Go jump on it. She's not intimidated by it. She jumped 20. She had 28.9, I think it was not even touching that jump mat primarily. That's when I said, this conjugate stuff works for the jumps.
How do you choose which variations you go to?
That's a good question. Initially, I have a system where I do 4. I block it into 4 areas. This is this constant study because I believe there's let's go back. There's horizontal force production. Okay, that's your vertical. I mean, I'm sorry, that your vertical. That's force production. That's your vertical. Vertical force production, that's your vertical leap. Horizontal is your broad jump. You need to have, when you're sprinting, there's two components. You're pushing down vertically and you're pushing back horizontally. I know that the scientists say it's pure vertical top speed. The Jesse said that doesn't make no sense, but he's right. There's vertical forward production, because how would you go forward down the track? So you got to build both. So I said that's why I had to conjugate. So this is how I came up to it. I was doing straight vertical. I would test the broad jump, but I come back to it, and the broad jump ain't moving. Well, I'm not training it. We just doing vertical. How's it gonna go? We ain't doing it. And then we do broad jump, that would go up. Then the vertical wouldn't go up. It's like long block periodization. That's why it don't work. People do this block, strength block, power block, hypertrophy. Conjugates doing all that at the same time. But the jumps are the same way. You would lose the ability of these jumps. If you're not doing any depth jumps, you're not building elasticity, you lose that too. So I'm like,
so how many given jump variations are you doing on a day usually?
Just now I've experimented. Usually I would do two. I would do two, but now
horizontal and a vertical.
Horizontal and a vertical, and then I'm doing I call them reactive jumps for elasticity. My second day is reactive. It's some sort of pogo, or some sort of depth jump, or some bound. Because I believe a year before I kind of like listening to Chris Corpus. I think he's kind of brilliant track code. But the feet, and man, he went to West Side too. But he got away from it. Like as you say, I don't think people understand the whole system. They don't deep dive into it enough and experiment with the actual template enough and ask enough questions. But anyway, he was right. If your feet can't handle the force your thighs are putting into it, your hamstring, your quads, your hips, your glute, you're dispersing that. You're losing that force production. It's dispersing the force. The tendons can't accept it and redirect it. So I said that I've been always doing plyos, but now it made more sense to do it. So that's when I started doing more depth jumps. I started doing depth jumps more. Maybe that's not a thing. And I went back to Louis. Louis was scared of him. People don't realize that Louis was scared. He always tell the story. I always jump up. You throw a bottle on top of a box, it won't break. You throw it off a box, it'll break every time. And he was scared to jump. When I went back to see him years later, he would always jump off an 18-inch box. And that's my sweet spot, is an 18-inch box. That's where I get some of the best jumps out of that, and the best force production, the best elasticity out of that one. So my second day is that. That's how I kind of designed it. So now that's my rotation. So now I'm building all those qualities at the same time. I'm building a broad at the same time. I'm building, because a lot of coaches call me, they go, man, broad jumping going up. Well, do you train it? Nah, we don't train it. So you gotta do it. It's like simple. You gotta do it. To get strong, you gotta lift heavy. If you to get fast, you gotta run fast. But to get the broad jump, you gotta do that too. I believe it's because it's technical. You gotta put force in the right direction, and it's all that combination of the same thing. So now what I've done, I've got so many variations that are so valuable. I do a circuit now. I'm hitting 5 different vertical jump variations in the same set. They go into here, because now I have room now. I can go here. Do a seated jump, do a standing jump, do a depth jump, do a approach jump. And then if I notice one is stimulates them better, I'll like my state champion Natalie. Her best jump is the seated jump. For some odd reason, she has better seated. As the girl Kayla. So now I'll have them do that a little more to drive the vertical up. I do a assisted jump too. I had this kid Chris, a lineman. Like Louis told this story about, I had these comment. Louis said, "I hate this. I hate training football. This is why it drove me to Louis too. I hate football because it's too easy. It's not a challenge. Yeah, I to knock 3/10 off in 2 months is nothing. To get and that's a detracted me to him because he gets the results so fast. So I had Chris, my lineman, for 2 months. 5. This is almost a Louis story. I wanted to have Louis stories too. I want to have Louis anecdotal stories. So my life 285. I had him 2 months, dude. I put on 20 pounds of muscle on him. His thing, I was doing the jump mat. It was working, but it wasn't working that good. and I rotate him to an approach jump on the vertex. He said, "Bert, I like to touch. I need something to touch." The old me 10 years, 20 years ago would have been like, "You're just doing that at mat or just boxes. Yeah, I'm stubborn. Like it's gonna work. Stay with it." But I saw that the vertex worked for him. We did the vertex. One time he jumped, he had 10.5, then 10.6, 10.7, 10.8. And I said, "Damn, you got it." I said, "Go on that jump mat." He was at 21, by the way, 20. He had 20 on that just jump mat. I was like, okay. That's why I said the conjugate. I came back around to it. But his thing, I had to do the vertex approach jumps to drive his vertical up, And so that's how I kind of pick. I kind of rotate. Now, when I find something that moves the needle more, I stay with it. But I'm still hitting all those qualities.
Mm-hmm. I guess what I was getting at there is, are you, you can kind of like, you can react to what there's, I guess, like three sort of ways that you can approach it. You can just say like, this is what we do and it's what you do. Then there's sort of changing things out in response to what you're seeing.
Yeah, that's true.
Then so that would be like reactive. And then there's sort of like leading them with like, I know, almost sort of like what I would do like with the board press progression.
Yes.
Like coming down where it's like, I'm basically like leading or teaching you in this order.
Right.
So it's like almost like with the jumps, like almost like you're setting out a curriculum or you're tutoring where you're going like, we do this.
Another thing is like, I think the squat mirrors. Well, Lou would say this. It sticks in my mind to this day. He said the squat is a jump with the bar on your back. That especially for dynamic effort, because it's compensatory acceleration training. You got to go as fast as you can to get the best concentric lift, to get the highest speeds, which is important for athletics, dude. If you don't have this VBT stuff, you're not moving fast. Which I don't have VBT since about 2017. But Louis, he was the first person to use it in America. Now it's like coming. Nobody ever forget that he was.
It's everywhere. OVR Performance.
But he was So this stuff is old news to me. But I learned from the guy that actually studied it, and he put a tendo on the top of the rack to measure the eccentric speeds and the bottom of the rack. And he taught me like VBT. That's the guy that taught me the force velocity curve, all the strengths, But anyway, going back to the jumps, I look at it when I break down a squat breakdown. It's the same as a jump. Do they get stuck at the bottom? Do their knees shoot in? Do they have a sticking point? That's what I'm kind of looking for. Even on the broad jump, do they stick at the bottom? Where do they stick at? So depending on what I see, that's what I just conjugate the jump for. I try to devise a jump variation to fix the mirror the squat sticking point I'm trying to fix. So I'm analyzing the jump that way, because a squat and a squat and a jump are the same biomechanical things. Not a clean, folks. That has no reference to athletics in my mind.
Yeah.
And
that really makes a lot of sense. There's some when I was making West Side versus the World, there was lots of those old videos from like 91-ish, kind of like 91 to 93 maybe, where they hadn't moved into the blacked out window strip mall gym yet. And where they were still in this like back room, and Matt Dimmel's in them, and like really young Chuck Vogelpohl. And Louis in those videos would talk about like arching off of the box.
Yes.
And when you say like, a squat and a jump are the same, which I wholeheartedly like agree with.
It's basically when you jump, when you squat, you're applying this max. This all force velocity. When you're squatting, you're applying maximum force with no time limit. But when you jump, you're applying maximum force with the very fast time limit. Infinite, doing it at super fast limits. It's maximum force, zero velocity, that fast velocities.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is very specifically like this concept that Louis would always say that I don't think makes a lot of sense to a lot of people. You kind of like, I think you have to be like a fairly advanced squatter to really understand it, like to understand proprioceptively, like the feel, but arching out of the bottom,
Yes.
like that idea of, because like when you go down and you jump, your chest generally is going to, collapse down and compress down.
Louis would always say, he would say, start the lift with your back. Start with your back.
Right.
And that was like, that resonated. It's like a jump to me.
Yeah. Yeah. If you squat that way, it's exactly like it's a slow motion jump. That's sort of how I like explain that to kids. Like
Yes.
when I say, try and arch out of the bottom, which I don't say to everybody. But I have like my best squatter right now, that girl that I have, she like kind of arches out of the bottom and like gets some tilt to her torso, and you can tell that she's like, if she describes it to you, she says it's like I'm driving up through like my lower traps, even though
Yes.
it's a safety squat bar.
Right.
But it's that like opening of the hips right from the bottom versus, to a lot of people, it's, your torso just stays like very vertical and
Yes.
comes down and then it comes up, and so it's like the legs are just pistoning. It's sort of like they do a less athletic version of a squat, and I
Yes.
think that's why a lot of people have that problem connecting those two things together, is
Right.
because they want to squat with like no rotation of the like all rotation is bad to them.
Right.
So they want this, like, it's so robotic that it doesn't look like a jump at all anymore.
Right.
Um, but so that's something we've talked about before, is like, and that's another like great case for heavy lifting or
Yeah.
for max effort or near maximal, brief
Tell my
maximal.
kid, I tell my kids your body is a weight. And what makes you jump higher if you're moving that body at a fast rate against gravity. And it's like that makes sense. Because I got gravity coming at 9.8 meters per second. I weigh my girls weigh like 130. I need to, in order to move my body at a certain speed to get up in the air. The faster you stand up, the higher you're gonna get. So it takes a lot of force to do it in a short amount of time. And it's like I tell them that my key is go faster, like a squat, stand up fast. They're in that mindset, and then they lock in. They lock in. And obviously the box squats are a major factor too. But doing that, but that's how I relate the jumps and analyze them and find ways to conjugately fix them. If they can't get to the bottom, I usually kind of get them. I put them in a low ass box and do you see it, clear jumps. They call them the old Russian triple jump guy. We do, but that's like it's putting where their sticking point is, and they got to come at that thing fast to get up in the air, and they're below their sticking point. They can do it below their sticking point. The normal jump is high. It's gonna be a piece of cake, you know. So that's kind of how I do the jumps. I analyze and I film them all the time. And there's, I broke my jumpers down into different categories too. You know, some
What
stick at the bottom. Some stick at the bottom. Some their knees come in. Some stick in the middle. So I kind of, depending on what I see, I kind of devise different jumps for those kids. It's all about finding. Louis taught me the main thing about going to West Side. You can do any type of program or scheme or periodization you want to, but you got to find. This one thing that's stuck with me too, and I swear I say this all the time. Every week I got to know how strong you are, how fast you are, and what your weaknesses are. If you know what their weaknesses are, you will drive any athlete to the top upper echelons. And that's what I do with the squat. The sprints, the jumps, the lifts, mobility. It's just finding the weaknesses and knowing how strong and how fast they are every week. And so once I met Louis, I test every session. Every session I'm testing. Before then I would test once a month. But now every rep is a test. That's what that might a lot of college coaches don't do that. They might have tested. I had a kid come in the other day, I was telling you. I go, bro, when you guys test your vertical, he said, we tested my tracker wave, Matty Trout. We tested once a semester or once a year. I said, what? And then I go, do you guys train, and do you do plyos and jumps at your training? No, we don't do that. Let's go. How do they expect it to go up? Well, we let it lift. All right, well, we don't jump though. I'm thinking like, what is going on there? And when you think you would deduce the verticals aren't going up, they wouldn't they make some changes logically thinking. But me, I would go crazy. Like Louis would say, I would go if I don't get like he said, if I don't get a record for a year, I'd shoot myself. That's what Louis would say. But I but I would say, and another thing I say too, Louis says, you don't tie a record, dude. It's like kissing your sister. And what I would do, I say, when we tie a jump record, we keep going. I don't care. You're not kissing your sister. You're gonna beat that record, and I don't care if when you beat it. That you tie that record, we keep going to that record. You start going backwards, dude. And that's another thing. We go hard as possible, and we don't go till we can't go no more. And the jump, sprints, and the lifts, and that drives these numbers up. That's the one thing. If you can go hard, you can, and all those sprints, jumps, and lifts, and do it optimal though. And then also test it. Shoot, sky's the limit, dude. The sky's the limit. You'll have some crazy numbers. That's all the secret is. That's all it is. That's the main thing about Westside. If you don't, if you like, you can water it down. If you have those three principles there, you can. If you go as hard as you can, and you test on all those things, you'll have success.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think
That's not common.
yeah. Well, that's a lot of that goes back again to our sponsor, OVRPerformance.com. When you track everything and kids can see all of the.
There's a funny story about that too. I'm always again every 3 months my program is changing, and right after you came up there, I had all those 70-inch box ups. I go online. I'm cruising online all the time. So I look at this dude, and well, actually, I was at Westside, and I was listening to a podcast, and Louis goes, "There's this guy named Jared Bidney, and down in he's killing it. He's got these baseball players. He's come to train with him. Not his fault. They have oblique tears. And like this, I just said, I never heard him really mention anybody athletic training wise.
Uh-huh.
So I look on his Instagram. He had a Split Mechanic shirt, I think, on. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, he had a Split Mechanic shirt on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So I look down, and I look online. I'm like, there's this kid squatting 600 pounds and benching 4, and his knee jumping 225. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And he's not that big. He's a skinny looking kid. I said, dude, I messaged him and said, I said, what'd you do with this kid, man? I want to know. That's how I operate. Like, so I call up Jared Bidney. He goes, I never seen nobody jump on a 70 like you have. So he came up to the gym, did a podcast, Nowhereville, in the cold of October. And he was talking about these. He kind of got me into the jump mats because I was using boxes in the Vertex like Louis did. I was scared to do the jump mat because you got to, if you have it, you might as well. He tests all the time. Oh. So I said, I don't know because I'm afraid my kids might not peak at the right time. They do peak once a month, but now I'm seeing what happens every day. So I was afraid to do it, but I said, man, I got to kind of take a risk on this. And he said, you got to use the tendos. I was always against tendos until I knew about them, but like once Bidney came up, I was like, man, so it's got to be these cat squats. The speeds are just putting on these VBTs is helping you jump. So I went all in. I got me the Elite Fitness pad. I got that. So that's my program took a major change. We was doing the same thing, but I started using jump mats and got tendos. I had one, got another one eventually, and then we did the podcast there, and so now I started testing jump all the time now. But to much of this chagrin, they was going up. Some systems the kids they need super compensate. They get beat down, they come back up. My kids, so I found in my program, in heavy, intense bouts of training, they actually are still going up incrementally. But I was scared to death to do it. But then I started testing shortly thereafter. I was always doing fly tens. This Charlie Francis did this years ago. We talked about this early on. I've been doing it. Before I knew about Tony. No offense, but I was doing feed the cats. But there was no timers. I'm not gonna. We had a Brower, but it was a pain to set up. We were doing fine. We were timing them, so I got the free lap because of Tony, and I was afraid to death to clock these kids because I know my system. Traditionally, I would test once a month. They'd peak them, and then but to much to the grin, my kids would incrementally go up in heavy bouts of training. And what I found is oddly they would hit the best numbers in the middle of the month, somewhere in the middle of that dynamic effort wave. I don't know why, but that's somewhere they get the best jumps. Not the end. Because I used to test at the end. This is where testing. I remember Dan Pash says you need to test all the time because you don't know, you can't time it out. You maybe can, you can't, you might not know what's happening. The kid have a bad day at school, break up with a girlfriend, they might have there's all these variables. They might just play
and even when you think about, your dynamic effort waves, most people, their dynamic effort wave ends
That's
with
true.
the heaviest weights.
That's
so
true.
It ends at the slowest.
That's true.
And then you look at, say, a lot of track models where their waves end at the fastest velocities.
Yes.
It's so true. And in that sense, it's like the end sort of, especially when you're doing, pendulum waves where, even a 4-week wave is pretty short. So if you're only testing after the heaviest week, that might be the worst week to test.
Right. Yeah. You got
for some kids.
You're right.
Yeah. What I find is for my weakest kids, the heavy dumbbell week, week 3 for us, that's when they're most likely to hit their PRs. For the fastest kids, week 1, the lighter dumbbell, their lightest dumbbell week is when they hit it. And then a bunch of kids are in week 2. So I'll track a week 1, week 2, week 3 PR, an all-time PR. Because I want them always trying to, the most valuable thing is, the 1 RM to me on whatever it is. Can we go faster than we've ever gone? Can we go heavier than we've ever gone? Can we do something that we have never done before? But then to contextualize further, because when kids start to figure out oh, I don't jump well on this week, if I don't have a good shot at hitting a PR, then I'm not going to try very hard. So I have a secondary, your week 3 PR, your week 2 PR, your week 1 PR. So now if they hit a PR on a week where they know they're not, if they break their all-time PR on the wrong week, well, now they're super excited because the next week is the week where they're supposed to hit it.
Right. They're super excited.
But it's that same thing of I think that's why you talked earlier about Buddy having a hard time with max effort and the dynamic effort waves.
Yeah.
Because I see that all the time with people, because it's really you're running separate programs.
Correct.
And these programs are happening simultaneously, and then people really have a hard time because they're in the weight room.
Mm-hmm.
If you were oh, we're doing this program out on the track,
right?
They have no problem going oh no, we're doing this on the track, and then we're doing this. Sort of the same as people going they do the same thing with the track work, where they go we're doing an acceleration block. We're doing a max velocity block, and you go for me, it's we do acceleration this day and max velocity this day, or we do one en route to the other. We're just getting better at everything constantly a little bit, and nothing super compensating. So it's just there.
The one thing I thought was BS when I was reading Charlie, I said, there's no need to do all this tempo work, dude. So little by little, I said, I remember what stuck out on Charlie. He said, The only way to get faster by actually sprinting is running faster 95%. And then Louis said the same thing. He said the only way to get stronger is lift 95% or heavier, or 90% or heavier. So kind of to me, it matched. It made sense to me. But then at the same time, he was like, you don't want to do this. Charlie would say, like, you don't want to do this medium intensity, which is like 94% to, like 76%. And to me, it was like, that was like lifting like somewhere mid 80s, below maximal, sub-maximal, but not heavy. And then so like, but this dynamic effort was like doing tempo. But I said this tempo work is just too much running. It's just, I eventually eliminated it years ago. And that was you got to, but you have to know it inside and out to do that. And what I did is I replaced it with, the rhythm system is important. Like you cannot do it because you need repeatability and conditioning. So I replaced, Lee was talking about sleds. I replaced that with sled walks. So it's unconventional. So instead of tempo, you can do, a rhythm system anyway. Biking, swimming. I did it with sleds. So I tell people, like, these track parents come to me like, Byrd, you're not running. Well, like, you're not hardly running. Like, well, I'm doing, we're doing the right things, it's just unconventional. All this tempo running these kids do, I'm doing with sleds. It doesn't, they can't wrap their heads around it. But going back to it kind of, it made sense for me to mesh the two because I understood the two systems, And meeting Huntington years later, he's my track coach. To me, one of the best track coaches in the world next to Charlie. That's what he does. He does max effort, and he does actually explosive power dynamic effort. So what I did, I had this one kid, and Lou would talk about explosive power lifting, very, very light and fast weights. And I had this one kid, DB, his name is Isaiah, and his squat went up. Buddy Morris would say, if you have a kid squat, his vertical goes up 3 inches, and then from 300, and then it goes up to 400, it goes up 3 inches, and then it stops going up. And what he did say, he said, what happens is he no longer can use his strength in a short amount of time. So that happened to my kid. That tidbit, all the studying I did, that stuck out to me. So with him, I had to go really light, and I already jump a lot. So that was the next thing you had to do. If you don't jump, you better be jumping. Because that kid he can't express his strength fast. So I had to go with him 30. This is back to your Veroshansky, 30 to 40, 30 to 50% squats and jumps, loaded jumps. He was 185, 175. He squatted 500. He only had a 26 vertical. He could no longer use his strength in a short amount of time. So once I did that, I did max effort and 30 to 40, 50% loaded jumps and squats, deadlifts. Then it continued upward. Then he went from 26 to 34. But but not knowing, but it's harder to wrap around that. How does this fast stuff work? Because a lot of times it's, again, sports is the same thing. It's how much force you can produce and how fast you can do it, against your body weight. So some people have trouble doing it fast. He had trouble. I had to, if it wasn't for doing all that study I did for years and years and years, and I had to take an experiment on him, he flew up, So there's stuff like that happens, So now on my 4th week, I do a 4-week wave. That is my 4th week wave. I'm going fast squats, hitting 1 meter per second plus. And that's what Huntington does. When you have somebody who's really strong, that's what they need to do. Because almost like it's damaging doing that. It's just fatiguing doing that much work, load, volume, and doing even 50 to 70%, 55%. So that's why I love that maneuver, because it kind of bridges the max strength with the explosive power. It's a bridge. That's why I can't get rid of it, But I still do max effort on my dynamic every day too, because I remember Donnie was doing maxes after one of my kids one day. They go, Byrd, can I max out today? Because I was doing VBT, and the numbers were just way off. Like, I feel strong. And I think it was Jocelyn. She goes, can I max out today? I said, cool, let's do it. Hit single. We had our wave of 60%. I just drove Natalie, my state champ. She was squatting 165, dude. when I first got her. Pretty good. We did. She came in. My kids, they come in as like a jump rope. It's like double dutch. You got to hop in and you got to go where we starting at, no matter what. So she came in on the next week was the explosive power week. So we squatting with the bar and the band. Some people they don't do bands until the kids are strong. I start from the get go. Louis would say, "You want to go to the West California? You go to the right road, not the wrong road, not the detour." So I bands on that bar. She was hitting like a 1-2. I said, "Damn, this doesn't make any sense." What happened is she was applying more force. She was applying more force than 165 pounds on that bar of force, because you need to apply 165 pounds on the bar. Let's say you're maxing out. In order to move 165 pounds on a bar, you got to put 175 pounds of force to move it. These coaches don't know that. It sounds like it. But when you're doing dynamic effort, you're putting the same amount of force in the bar. It's just lighter. And so it correlates. So that's why I explain to my kids, you're actually still going heavy. You're just playing the same amount of force on a max to get to certain speeds. So she was trying to push it on the VBT. That's what VBT is valuable. She was pushing it, trying to beat these numbers. She hit 1, 1, 2, 1, 2. I started throwing some weight. I said, wait a minute. Your max has got to be, because if you do 0.8, you double that. If you have accommodated resistance, that's double your max. So I said, your max has got to be 220 now. We maxed out that day. She hit 220, because if she was applying 220 pounds of force against the 165 pound bar, 65-pound bar in just a band, and she was illicit speeds over 1 meters per second, and so that's why I kind of do VBT. I kind of make sure they're in the right range. Be tired or whatever, they could be fresh, they could feel stronger. Like if you're doing the right thing, they should be getting stronger. Now the numbers are gonna be off. It gives you guidelines. Now I was so good at doing it. Like Louis kind of stopped doing it. I could visualize and tell what the speeds are. I can almost look across the room and say, okay, that was 0.5. That was 0.4. That's 0.6. Go heavier. Oh, that's 0.1. Put some weight at bar. Now I've seen so many squats, I can tell, and so many jumps, I can tell what the jumps are now. So that's why I never get away. I do max effort and dynamic on the same day, where some people might just do full max effort is fine. Some people don't do it. A lot of coaches don't do no max effort. So it's hard for these kids. The kids I get, they lifting in high school weight rooms for years. They never get strong, and it's sad because, again, I try to save these. I can't save them all, but they can never reach their full potential. They are not doing the right thing.
And it's like,
and the crazy thing, they think they're going to go to college and get better. My kids believe to their heart they're going to get this. They're going to go to college and get the best training, and then become this freak athlete and go to the NFL, or become a professional track athlete. But when they get there, and I tell them this, they're like, Byrd, you're right. Like, this is like ridiculous. Because then they've been educated. They've been to someone who's sought knowledge out from the best in the world, and they've seen near the best. I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm not that brash, but like they've seen good stuff. And when they get there, they're like disappointed. Like, what the hell is this? Now I'm going backwards. We don't test. So like, they're like in a tizzy now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it. I've known you for now about a decade, and we've talked for thousands of hours probably. Like, you get so excited talking about all of this stuff, and you have had so many results, and you get so excited telling the stories of those results.
I love telling the stories.
Yeah. Well, yeah, same, I've made a career of telling stories.
Yeah.
But some people, again, not knowing you, like, I think that comes off as arrogant or like.
It's like Deion Sanders says, don't let my confidence don't let my confidence offend you,
Yeah, well, there's that point, but it's also just genuinely like, this stuff is not what you're talking about. Like, none of it, when you break it down into its like smaller pieces, it's not actually that hard. And that's partly why, like, it is so easy, because you're not the only guy that gets results, and you're not the only guy that gets results. Like, this is actually, like, none of the stuff you've really talked about today is actually that
groundbreaking,
that hard. It's it's mostly realizing like how much less sort of you have to do or have to focus on.
Correct.
Like so like looking at the running, you go like, well, wait a second, like I can take this tempo work out. Looking at the jumping and going like, well, if I just jump all the time and I'm always measuring it, like it's sort of like reading a book. Like,
There you go.
how if you said like, well, I'm going to study once a semester, I'm going to take a day and study. No one would ever expect that you're going to be any good at that class.
There, exactly.
And yet we go, yet kids will go months between really testing the efficacy of any of their training, and like, I'm going to test my vertical once or twice a year. Well, how is that kid supposed to get good at jumping? And how are you as a coach? Their test day is one of your opportunities. There's what's happening for you as a coach and what's happening for them as an athlete. If you're never testing them, then you're never really learning from your programming.
Exactly.
And they're never learning how to execute these high max effort outputs, regardless of whether that's a heavyweight or running fast or jumping high. It's very popular now to accept that, like, yeah, if you're not running 95+%, then you're not necessarily getting any better at sprinting. You shouldn't expect to get faster without sprinting.
Correct.
That's very in vogue to say and do now, and it's very true. And now there's a bigger push to, with jumping and stuff to say, well, if you want to get good at jumping, you need to jump more frequently. But, and there's still this resistance on the lifting side of like,
Yes.
well, we don't want to lift heavy.
Correct.
And you go like, well, then how do you know that you're actually getting any better at what you're lifting, period? Now, if you throw VBT on it, you put an OVR velocity on the bar, and you're aware of the relationships of numbers, then like, yeah, you might learn something. But ultimately, again, in the way that you're watching how they break down on a 1 rep max squat, and you're attributing you're then taking that structural or form breakdown and going, here's how that's going to affect them running or jumping. Like, now we're diagnosing. This is a diagnostic thing as much as it's not the ego. It's no one really cares about the number. It's
it's like when you come in, it is a good point. You say it's diagnostic. I map out their whole force velocity curve. I see how fast they run. I see how high they jump, how far they jump. I see how reactive they jump with no weight. Then I see how they are with loaded jumps. Then how good are they with a little more load. Then that transcends into how they at light and fast lifts. How fast are they with intermediate weights and lifts? How fast are they at speed strength weights? Semi-heavy. How fast are they at heavy lifts? So I map out that whole thing once a month, and I keep track of it once a month, and they can see it too. When those numbers, like Charlie would say, a hit on the force velocity curve somewhere will affect it everywhere, and you know what I mean. So like, and so like that is the part that people were forgetting. They don't understand this inside out. If you give a hit in that force velocity curve and the maximal strength, it's going to affect the everywhere. It's going to affect the speed strength. It's going to affect the loaded jumps. It's going to affect the sprinting. But if you do it too much on one side, it'll take away from it though as well too. If you do all max stuff, which these colleges will do, some people will do, very few, now what I'm afraid of, people are going to do all speed stuff, and they get away from the heavy stuff. That will drift it away from the force side. Too much, like Randy said. If you say the mistake people make, they stay all the velocity side or all the force side. But you gotta hit those points all the time to move that curve in the right direction. And so that athlete have more force production capabilities. But you don't know that unless you're tracking it. You know
how
what I mean?
how often or how much do you see? So I always think about that like we're trying to put more area under the curve.
Yes,
Like
that.
when you look at, there's always videos every year of say Nick Chubb or somebody squatting something that would be like highly competitive at a national level in a powerlifting meet. And you go like, he doesn't really squat that much. Like he doesn't devote a lot of time and energy to getting like he's just using the squat as support for other attributes. And then he's also doing, I'm sure he's running and jumping. He's going out and doing, he's got football, he's got practice. He's doing all these things, but you go like, he's lifting very heavy,
Yep.
probably for not that much of his concentration, but he is lifting very heavy. And then likewise, he's probably running fast, but he's probably not running with the frequency and volumes of a sprinter.
Right.
But he's almost as fast as a sprinter, and he's almost as strong as a high level competitive power lifter. He
There
can
you go.
almost be the top of either mountain,
Yeah.
and he gets to that place by doing very little of each. And then you see, because I also know a ton of power lifters, and I know a ton of, guys in their 20s and 30s who all they do is power lift, and it gets so hard. It's so hard for them. They're concentrating everything, and their technique is perfect. It's so hard for them to get that 600 or 700-pound squat, but they do nothing fast.
Yeah.
And there's the fast guys who do nothing slow, and it's so hard for them to get as fast as a reasonably fast football player or
Exactly.
and you
Exactly.
or like, and you see the same conundrum with like bodybuilders who like, oh, it's so hard you can't build your biceps in a vacuum. Like you can't build your bicep up big if you have tiny forearms. But if you bring your forearms up, your body rewards you by like maintaining that shape.
Right.
So I look at like the Nick Chubbs of the world and go like, if he just tends a little bit to this end and a little bit to that end, he's rewarded with the whole curve growing.
Well,
So
that's well said. Louis told me, I'll never forget, is a quote he said, the reason you miss heavy weight, and this is from Fred Hatfield, really. The reason you miss heavy weights is you can't move fast enough. And that's a lot of the powerlifters, they screw up. They want to go heavy all the time, but really, you only have so much. Louis would say you only have so much time to strain. And wherever my kids lift, I say you better go fast because what makes you miss a lift is you aren't moving fast enough. And that's why I tend to the max effort. They want to beat that number. So that's a mistake people. And then on the sprint side, I'm in the track world. I have a track club team, Byrd Sports from a track club. A lot of these people, they don't want to go on the weight side. But there's a lot of fear to it too. If you're not technically taught, I could see where you don't want to venture into it. It's a complicated thing. When I met Louis, I didn't know. I thought strength was strength. It's like there's a barbell there, you lift it and it's heavy, you're strong. But I didn't know there was lots of strengths. That's not something these people learn in the CSCS. No offense. So it's like the thing that is people are afraid or it's hard to seek out. Maybe they fear weights. I worship the weights and I worship speed. Like
well,
the rest.
I think like you said earlier in this conversation, like weights are just like making your body as a weight. So weights are like making your body heavier.
Exactly.
Right. And like, I think if you phrase it that way, I think very few, I think that phrasing it or framing it that way, like a lot of track coaches would get down with that because,
Yep. Your body's a weight.
like I say all the time, I know that you've heard.
You got it. If we had these 1080s out there, man, I got one. But like the first couple steps, it's force, it's max force, and then it's power, and then as you get on the track, it's velocity. If you don't have that force, it's like a car. You can't get that thing going. Once you get going, it starts rolling easy. But it's hard to get behind it and push it. You need a lot of power and strength, and that's what happens on a track. Your body is a weight. You need a lot of power and force to get your body in motion. Then the momentum
I
takes.
haven't I haven't been to a track meet yet where they ran the 100 meters downhill. They
Exactly.
don't help you get going. You got to start it yourself,
You got to start
right?
yourself.
Like,
It's like in the car. I tell my kids, you're in the car, you pumping that gas, the RPMs go whoop. And then as you get going, they kind of come down a little bit. But it takes a lot of force and power to get that thing moving, dude. And so the track coaches can understand that. Oh my God. Forget about it. Now the good ones, I talked to Stephen Francis, the Jamaican track coach, the couple in October, man. And he said, Byrd, asking for his secrets. I said, you done train a million gold medalists. Like, you're the guru. I want to listen to you. He said, Byrd, you cannot train acceleration in on a track. You got to do it in the weight room. And basically saying you need to get strong to get acceleration and get off the line and get going. And that's what Jared Benny does. He's not really running. He just get them strong and powerful. It's max force, it's peak force, peak velocity. I mean peak power. Excuse me, in the 40-yard dash, and that's what he's building. And he just runs once a month and he kills it on that principle. So these track coaches that get that, the good ones know it. If the high school ones get it, they're starting to get it. But that's why some of these track kids can never reach their dreams. They can never reach their speeds. These girls I'm having success with, I'm just putting bars on their back, dude, to get them strong. That's the main thing. Alex Lee, she took third in the Patriot League. When I got her, she ran a minute. Her goal, she goes, Byrd, I just want to break the school record, run a half second faster and win the league. And then I want to run, that was it. And so she was a 12.9, a 27, very average, 27 in the 200 and a minute in the 4. Man, I got done with for that year. She ran 25.3 and she ran 57.3 and a 12.4. Then after that, she ran a 12.1, a 24.9, 24.6 and a 56 flat. Yesterday, this weekend at the Patriot League, she ran 55.3 and 24.7. What happened, dude? She got stronger. Her max strength went from 100 pounds to 200 pounds. Her vertical went from 19 to 31. Broad jump went from 6'11 to 8'8". Once the max strength went up, the power went up. The jumps went. The power of the jumps. The jumps went up. That broad jump went up almost 2 feet. Vertical went up 11 inches. Then it affected the speed. I just had to just run her fast. Flying 10 went from a 111 to a 95, dude. And then she had the ankles of calf from God. She hit on the OVR jump, by the way. She does the most elastic human being I've ever seen. She has a 4.0 RSI. I think I cannot, but she was a dancer back in the day, and gymnastics. And on the hurdle hop, she is 0.95. So she had the foundation below the knee effect to kill it. I just had to build it up the knee. But had I not done max, and the further I got to the max strength side, I said, Alex, if you squat 200 pounds, you'll be dangerous. And that's what just pretty much happened. A lot of these track coaches would take her on the track and run. She'd been running for years, but like nothing happened. Get some strength on them. Lou would say, I got to slow you down. Let me slow you down. That's what he's saying. He's like, I got to add mass to you. I got to add force to you. And then she got fat. But he knew that would affect everything. It affect your explosive power, your speed. It is everything. You know what I mean? So she's benefiting from it. That's a kid that would have fell through the cracks. And suddenly she'd been running a minute. She would never got these. She pays 5% scholarship. She has 95%. And so now, and tuition is $85,000. So she doesn't save that much money by doing the right conjugate training, So, it's just, so now it's like, now I do this to make kids just achieve their dreams now. And it's just, if you know the body, you understand the training, you can, I enjoy taking these average kids and making them unbelievable or very good. I don't say unbelievable, but like for her to do that, I would have never thought she would have ever done that. Never would have thought she'd done that. Just like Saquon. I met Saquon, he was 150 pounds. I would have never thought he'd be what he is today. But he box squat and he was doing max upper sprints. He was working. I would have never 155.6 in the 10th grade. I would have never believed. But good. Here's the thing: the best athletes produce the most force in the shortest amount of time against their own body weight. But there's very few freaks. It's just if you do something good training for a long time, you eventually will be at the top. Even if you're just below average, you'll be something. I had a kid named Cyrus. He ran a 12-second 100-meter, and a 5.740. Stiff. He went to a bodybuilding max fitness guy thinking he would get better, but he bodybuilt. He just got heavier. He would, people don't understand. That's what these high school football teams do. They bodybuild. They don't get strong. They bad mass and they don't get strong. So now their weight that they're trying to move is heavier than it should be. So I said, damn, you're too heavy now. You need to lose some weight, or we need to get you way stronger. So I put on basically a 200 pound in the squat, 300 pound in his deadlift. His vertical went from, he was bad. He was 17-inch vertical. Now he's at 35 in the just jump, and he's 31 in OVR, something like that. And then broad jump was 6'5". He hit 9'8". The guy was reacting now. We do the OVR jump. He had a 1-2 RSI. RSI is basically you're seeing how high you jump, and you're seeing how your ground contact time is, and it creates that number. Very slow on the ground. He had dead fish for feet. He would just flap it, no stiffness. And so we built all those qualities, dude. And then now he's a 3 RSI. Now he's on the OVR jump. He's like 1.2 consistent, but suddenly he gets a 1. And then now the dude runs like 11.3, 11.2. And he beat there's one kid named Cade at the high school, the star running back. Really, he was good. He does a little work and he can get by. He beat him in the 30-meter time trial. And he goes, man, he was working with Byrd. I thought he was a diamond polisher. I thought he took kids that were already high level and he just polished them off and made them a little better. But seeing you, he said, Byrd is the real deal. Because that kid would beat him by a whole second in the 40. Now he was ahead of him. And so it just goes to saying that old slogan saying, hard work beats talent when talent refuses to work hard. That's an example right there. And he did it in 9 months. It wasn't like years. It was 9. This is like I have Louis anecdotal stories where Louis in a short amount of time would make these kids respectable or elite. And I got many stories like that, which is cool. But I just took his principles, I studied it inside and out, and I applied it to my athletes. You know what I mean? So that's it's all it takes. And I didn't water it down, but I changed a little. But sometimes I do water it down depending on the athlete. Like I get this girl named Faith. Now again, the base is I max effort deadlift. I would max effort squat. Dexter, good morning. Then I would squat again. Well, with her, she has this weird. She just looks ugly when you put a bar in her back. So I was trying to squat her. So the old me would just say, "Let me just keep squatting her. Let me keep squatting her. Because she was weak. This girl's 5'8", 120. And so I said, let me just do more a little back. Let me fix that. Let me got on the back attack, do that. Still not respond. I said, F this. Go on that bell squat. You're going to max on that bell squat. She has long arms. I'm going to have you deadlift. I was scared of her deadlift because she has neutral, spine's not neutral. So I have her deadlift. I do isometrics and deadlifts and regular deadlifts. And her glutes weak. So I have her do rack pulls. Bro, that was like her. Really, was to say, if you go outside to find $1 million, you have 100 rocks. You turn them over to find $1 million. When you turn over every rock, I turned over every rock, and those were the magic elixirs. Her 60-meter hurdle time was 10.3. Oh, we did sled drags too, heavy sled drags. We did backwards quads are weak too. Her glute and quads was terrible. Backwards sled drags with 4 or 5 plates on, forward drags. Hypers, belt squat, no squat, just belt squat, and deadlift, rack pulls. Bro, her time started melting away. Jumped from 21 to 27. Now she's tired of Alex Lee. Bro, the last week she dropped to 10th, 1.5 off her time. Finished in the state, 6th place, crying, tears, that's why I do this. It's because the kids, the reaction I give the kids, because her dad goes, I never thought she would run a hurdle time in the 8s. And I said, Faith, you're gonna run 9.0. and she ran 8:98. So I'd be like Cyrus. I said, Cyrus, you're gonna run. You're gonna be the top four. He's laughing. We'll see, Bird. He was the top four fastest in the high school. And so that's what I do this because I'm so confident in my system. I know I can almost call out what they want. Oh, you want to dunk? I'll get you dunking. Like that's no problem. So it's no come to my system.
Yeah. Well, it's all like,
That's why you have to conjugate because there's so many exercises I could have chose. There's good mornings, there's power cleans, there's bell squats, there's a camber bar squat, there's a safety bar squat, there's a Mars bar, there's spider bar. I mean, so I'm constantly trying to move around until I find the right mix for her. It was taking the bar of her back and deadlifting. She wasn't even deadlifting and bell squatting. But so every kid is done. It's the magic is finding the magic of the $1 million that rock outside, and then their numbers just skyrocket.
But yeah, again, that's this sort of commonality. It's like no individual answer is hard.
Correct.
It's like having a system becomes all about having the next answer.
Right.
If you just always like, and eventually, like I say all the time, like I tell my kids, like you're the first you that you've ever been, but you're not the first you that I've ever seen.
I remember Maddie Trout going back to this. She had no confidence. We box squat her, and she had the weakest hips, weakest quads, and she gets stuck in the box. And she was so explosive, she couldn't handle 5 reps. My base was 5 reps. And I was like, explosive people, they kind of fizzle out. The people with the slower fibers can grind. Reps 8, 7, 6. So I'm like, this girl's explosive. I could maybe just cut the reps out. Let me just have her to do 3 reps. So we did 4 sets of 3. And I had her do reverse band squat a max of her day and to fix the top end. And then we did low ass belt squat isometric holds on the max on every day, both days. And we did dynamic effort regular with bands at the bottom. Bro, I never forget we was maxing out. We was doing dynamic every day. The numbers was crazy. I'm like, yo, you're hitting like 1s on there. You're supposed to be hitting 8s. I put weight on. I never forget this one dude. He was with my middle school football player, Osmani. She was maxing out. She was hitting numbers better than him. I go, she's smarter than you. She maxed out. She was at 110. She had 230, dude. But to me, to have to cut the reps back, knowing she was so explosive, and then take away like psychologically, like give her confidence. First band on because it's psychological thing. She could see more weight in the bar. She wasn't scared of it no more. And then just to fix it somewhere else to quad weakness on the bell squat. And it just then she jumped in the 54-inch box too. It was like it just started to take off, and she knocked off. That was the fastest she ever gotten. And when she left me, she went to school and they had a hyper. They didn't. Like, could you guys do the hyper? No, we don't do that. That just sits there. We don't do the hyper. It just sits there with no weight. We don't even touch that. Do you do glute ham? No, we don't do that either. She had hamstring tendonitis too, by the way. In college, she couldn't run no more. Do you guys jump? No, we did it once. We jumped once a semester. We don't do that. So like when they leave me and they're doing all those things that I personally selected for them to do, it's like they just fall to the wayside. She went backwards to where she started. She went a full 180, dude. It's sad. Dude. Me and Lou were talking about this. It's sad how these dudes get paid this money and they can't do what I'm doing. And then they're making more money than me. I'm doing okay, but like, come on, dude. Like, it's sad. But all you gotta do is just go outside your comfort level. And Lou would say, experiment with your bad athletes. Like Cyrus, I experimented with him. He was not subpar, but that's how I got him so fast and so powerful in such short a time by just picking the right exercises, changing it. I remember he was stuck at an 8-8 broad jump, and he's kind of like one of these kids that's like impatient. Bird, what's going on? I'm moving up. So he put pressure on me. I'm doing the best I can. We're like arguing, you know what I mean, in the gym. And I'm in this CrossFit, dude. And they're like, Bird, all these sprinters on TikTok are doing Olympic lifts. Everybody's supposed to, I decided to fight him over this Olympic lift thing.
I had that happen yesterday with a kid.
Oh, funny story. There's a national caliber Olympic lifter girl in there. She cleans like 230. She weighs like Emily. She's like maybe 150 pounds, something like that. Squats, crazy. They were push jerking off boxes. She did like 240 one day. So Cyrus, go do that. He couldn't do it. He's like, damn, how did she do that? One night he pulled her. He was snuck in the gym with her. He goes, let me see you get on this jump mat. He called her over to the jump mat. She jumped on that jump mat. She jumped like maybe 20. He's seeing my girls jump 30, 29, 30, 31, 32. He's like, what? This makes no sense. Bird, maybe he is right. He's like, wait a minute, this living lift, he said this doesn't work, but this girl should be theoretically better. And then he had her broad jump. She jumped like she couldn't do 7 feet. He's seen my girls do that. My worst girls do that. They were jumping 8 feet. Then he's seen her run. He's like, she can't run. He's like, oh my God, the bird is right. So he finally, once that happened, it was a blessing because now he fully bought in. Because he was thinking off on his own trying to do power clean. See, Bird, like, but what happened was I had to do knee jumps. Like Louis, that's when I went to the West Side, nobody talks about is knee jumping. And my best athletes could knee jump really well. I had a kid jump on the 2,400 box off his knees. He had a 4 years vertical and he was fast. All my fast people could do it. So he couldn't do it. I was doing all the right things. I started doing it. He worked his way up to 185. Now I had a guy do 275 in his back. The running backs. Another high jumper do 225. I weighed 150, 160. He couldn't do it. So he did it. What happened to his bar jump? He went from 88 to 98. Just off that. That was a rock and outside I found $1 million. And so now that was part of his program. You were knee jumping.
Once he bought in, did he accelerate a lot?
Oh my God. He was running like mid nines, low nine. Now he started running 8.5, 8.6 in the 5.10, 8.5, running 23 miles an hour. And he everything it really accelerated at that point. But he was moving, he was getting better, but once he really bought in, it just took off from there. It exploded.
I see that all the time where like a kid
I had a kid from a very popular, I'm not gonna say the name, but it's a worldly known Olympic lifting gym. And he came in because he wasn't, he said, Bird, speed a little better, my guy's good. Dude could clean. He was a safety. He was 185, 190. He cleaned 340, 350. I said, that's pretty impressive, dude. I seen it. I said, damn, I'm thinking like this guy's going to jump out. He's going to out jump my kids by a margin. He only jumped 30 inches and I just jumped. I couldn't believe it. I have to go run. He ran barely. He couldn't run 20 miles an hour. I said, my girls. And so that was this anecdotal evidence. How do you gonna say this? Does it biomechanically translate to sprints and jumps? So I was playing it all this to him. I said, dude, I've seen this over years. My kids are in college, blah blah blah, and they still wouldn't buy it. But he pulled that Olympic girl to the side and tested her himself. Did his own experiment. He bought in, and I've had some kids like Dylan Simon. I took him from a 12 flat to a 10.5, never Olympic lifting him. Meanwhile, the guy in his team is lifting 315. He couldn't touch him. He could not touch him. So you know what I'm saying? So a lot of in my area, the coach is like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. He is not doing these cleans, but yet they can't out jump us, outrun us, dude. And that's what Louis would say. It's a shame these colleges, they should definitely not outlift us, but they can't out jump us. That's a sin. That's what he would say, and that's what I'm saying too.
Yeah. Well, whenever I have a kid, I got a kid right now who he's only been with me for a week and a half, and the progress has been insane. Just every workout is crazy.
Okay.
But he's been a kid that I'm not even gonna say the numbers because like they don't sound believable. But he's like they don't like
bad side.
Oh, like he came in. He was a freshman boy. I guess I'll have to say he's a freshman boy. He came in the very first, like just to use bench because it's a thing that everyone knows. He's a basketball player, super long arms, very skinny, and he was struggling with like 95. I gave him some technical cues. He gets up to 125 for one. Right. This is last week. And then he comes in on Monday, and I'd had a conversation with a kid that he was training with.
Yeah.
Kid that he's training with has only been back for a couple weeks. He kind of went on a hiatus and went somewhere else and came back and realized he was weaker. And then he got frustrated because then he starts to realize, like, I could have just been here. And like, he's seeing where all the kids that he left were.
It's good though. It's good that we're kids. I encourage sometimes kids that if they don't buy in, go somewhere else and see what if it's better somewhere else.
Yeah.
Buy our best.
My whole thing is, if you're gonna leave, like, it's the same as, like, I love when a kid is argumentative, because
Yeah.
it's like, then you're curious enough to, like, if you're gonna argue with me, you have to pay attention to what I'm saying, because you've
Correct.
got to rebut.
Right.
So, and if you're trying to rebut me, then I know that you're trying. So I know your effort, all of a sudden, your effort and intention are going to go up if you're trying to prove me wrong. So if you go somewhere else and your effort and intention go up and your numbers can't keep up, then we're not going to have a long argument when you come back.
The other thing is your environment. Like Lee would say, you could add a new piece of equipment, a new method, but your training partners around you, that holds you to a standard. And that environment that he left might have hurt him too.
Well, yeah. He left, and basically he left to go somewhere where, like, they just rushed him through too fast. In addition to the fact that, like, the math doesn't make sense, but by rushing him through, that's killing his intent. He's trying to survive the workout. Now he's just doing sets, and he's not learning anything from any set. So it's, again, like, every time you find an answer, it accelerates you. So if you slow down and you, like, kind of look around and you find an answer set to set, you make crazy progress. Like,
yes.
if you slow down enough and you're, not that
you don't realize how important the rest time between sets of all the sprints, the jumps, and the lifts is highly underrated.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so, like, I get this one kid, he's got it now. Like, he understands that he wasn't paying attention to everything, and he wasn't valuing, like, he was, glossing over sort of the rules and systems. He's rushing too much. He's just doing it like a checklist. Like, he's picking up groceries. I got this, I put it in the basket. I got this, move through. And I'm like, no, man, like, you got to do it almost like you're at a bookstore. Like, you're going to pick up this book and you're going to read a few pages and you're going to look at the back and you're going to get all the pertinent data out of it. And then you're going to leisurely walk for what's the next good book. Like, where you might not look at a whole lot, but it might take, I don't care if you get 2 good sets in an hour, really. Like, if you got something, any set that you, like, really get the most out of it, like, that can be worth so much to accelerate you. It's like doing a jump. If you do 10 jumps and they're all trash, who cares? Or if you run 10 sprints and they're all trash, who cares? If you do one jump that's 0.6 inches higher than you've ever gone before, because that's our average improvement is 0.6 inches. Like, because you have to do something, like, when you think about it, it's like, to jump a PR, you have to do something you haven't done before. So, like, either you've got to be more rested than you've ever been before, you've got to be stronger than you've ever been before, or you literally have to sequence a motor pattern that was different than you've ever done before. So when there's a difference, a lot of times it ends up being a substantial difference. Like, so for us on average, it's 0.6.
Wow. Is that per session?
Not per session. I'm saying that when they hit a PR,
okay,
it's usually not 0.1.
When they hit it, okay. When they hit
like,
point,
yeah, it's usually like, if I go through, if I take everyone's PRs and then go, what was the average?
That's interesting.
It's about 0.6.
Wow.
So you go, like, okay, so when a PR happens, it's generally substantial, which to me says the kid tried something, like, something clicked.
Something clicked. Yeah.
So I'm having this conversation with this one kid, and meanwhile I got a brand new kid who he's talk trash to all the kids that lift with me for a long time. And he's lifted somewhere else for a long time. And he comes in and benches like 125. Like, but he's a freshman. That is actually statistically like pretty good.
Yeah.
Oh, now you're showing off that there's no dreads.
Yeah.
Oh, Jordan coming in,
Jory coming.
that second three-peat. It's all, sometimes you got to trade the hair for the championship,
Oh, man.
But for our audio-only listeners, Brandon Byrd is renowned for his long dreadlocks, and they're now gone.
I forgot. I was going to put them in and tuck in my hat and pull them off and surprise the audience. But I left here and I forgot that. But
now you can put them in one of those, like, one of the Jamaican little hats like they sell at like Venice Beach or something.
I did that with Blake Star. I pulled them off and they're like, whoa, they all jumped out like.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't have a lot of cards that I can play that way with my kids. I don't have enough defining features that I can just show up and be, I could shave my head, I guess, but it'd come off maybe a little weirder. But anyways, this kid, he comes in, his form looks terrible. It's like he's never touched a weight before. He benches 95, and it's wild. And then, like, we just go over his technique and stuff, and it's 105, it looks better. 115, it looks better. 125, and it looks better. And then I think misses 135, goes back down to 130 and misses it. And then we come back in. That's a Friday. We come in Monday, and he hits 145 for a triple. Or for two, he hits 145. So then his next goal is, okay, let's see if we can hit 150 the next workout for one. And, he went 125 for one, 135 for two, got one with 140.
Damn.
Said, okay, let's try and get two with, going up 15 pounds over a weekend is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
I was excited with that. I was like, man, this kid, like, especially because he was like, the bar was going wild on him with like 105. So it's like, like after looking like you were going to decapitate yourself with 105, within a few days, you're hitting 135, cool.
Yeah.
So then the goal was hit 140 for one. And if he had done that, especially with younger, like weaker kids, you add 5 pounds to the bar, sometimes they go from hitting 3 to hitting none.
Yeah.
But he told me, he came up to me and was like, I listened to what you told that other guy. And I got real excited because I was like, wait a second, and I told him, like, I didn't say it for everyone to hear.
But
for this other guy, I said, like, I want you to, because he's again the kid. He's another kid who had gone off and done his own thing, and he's coming back and realizing, like, I'm not where I got left.
Yeah.
And that kid had gone from 135 the week before to 165 for three, and then we're gonna try and hit. He hits 170 for two, and I was like, you're gonna set yourself up that you might be able to get to like 185. I was like, you're strong enough. There's what you're strong enough to do.
Right.
And so, like, this is a thing that I think gets lost with a lot of people. And, again, where it's like, none of this stuff is that hard.
I know what you're saying. Like when Natalie was maxing out, I said, you can hit 300. She goes, really? I said, you got to believe it. If you don't believe it, you will hit it. I believe in you. Yeah, I wouldn't let you do it unless I didn't believe in you. So you got to believe it. If you believe, you'll hit it. And she hit it, dude. She hit it.
But yeah, like, and like you're not gaslighting the kid. Like,
no,
you're saying it because you see the next answer.
I see it.
Sometimes it's okay, we got to correct this physically. Sometimes it's a technical thing. Sometimes it's a conceptual thing. Sometimes it's a mental, like, confidence thing.
Maddie Trout, she saw that weight, that verse band featured method. She saw that weight in there. It was like, okay, I can do this. Lindsay Bauer, I never forget, she hurt her back at college. we did reverse band. What she hit like 360, no 350 on the bar. I said, dude, she goes, I want to try 300 for real. And the whole gym circling around her, and I said, I know you can do this. Show 'em what you do. She it just flew up, dude, because she had already seen. She believed in it.
Yeah. But so I told the one kid who was coming back, I want you 3 times a day to think about how excited you are to come lift. Like you're unwrapping a present or you're going on vacation, to think about like, I'm going to see how I am.
Yeah.
Like it's a surprise that it's a present you get to open up. Man, what if I get this today? What if I get this? And I was like, but I want you to think about like it's small presents. You know, it's kind of like there's a 3-day weekend coming up and it's Thursday. You might have a test, but man, tomorrow's early release. You know, we're not really doing nothing on early release. So like, I'm basically to the weekend already. Like you're feeling good. You're excited. And that stress just melts off of you. I was like, I explained that to him. I was like, you know, you got to come in here excited for what you're about to do.
Yeah.
Not, I said it's counterproductive if 3 times a day you think about, man, I hope I get that weight. Man, I hope.
I got one girl, Natalie's teammate, Erin, and she's actually pretty talented, but she's she's the most unconfident person. She goes, I put on, she used her max is 165, but she moved. I'm looking at the numbers. She's moving at a 0.8. She goes, Bird is too heavy. I said, everybody knows the VBT. Like, dude, that's light. Look at the speed. And I'm like, go put the 25. She goes, no. And she just fails on it because of her brain. She doesn't believe it. She doesn't believe she doesn't believe she can do it. No, I'm not gonna get up. And then she smoked it. She smoked it. She smoked 205. Put this 10 on. She smoked that too. You know what I mean? It was like, but the whole time she's like, I'm not gonna be able to do it. But she's psyching herself out. She could have done more, but she's psyching herself out. She's telling her, I can't do it. I can't do it. And everybody's saying you can do it.
Yeah. But so I tell the kid who's returning, who he had left benching like 145. It's not an impressive kid by any stretch, but just he's a kid who's excited to be there. And he comes back and he's doing 135. He feels bad. But then a week and a half later, he's doing 165. And so we go, you know, we're going to try and get 170, 175. And not only does he at first he misses 170. And I go, you know, like, do you understand what you did wrong there? And I was like, you took it out of the rack and you went down diagonally. So when you do that, like your elbows came down, but your wrists came back. So you end up like in almost like a mini skull crusher. Of course you missed that. So I said, so now take it out of the hooks and just come straight out. And now you've got it in that groove. Now it's going to go up and down like a piston. It's going to be easy.
Got it.
Okay, I'm going to take it. I'm going to go through my checklist. I'm going to pull it out. And so like he's a little more deliberate with bringing it out. Goes down, goes up, boom, like a piston. It's the fastest rep he's done all day. I go, now we're going to do 175. And he does it the same way. Boom, boom, easy. And I go, now we're going to, and I see him starting to smile and his eyes get big. And I go, no. You can only celebrate once. We're not done yet. You know, it's like Kobe. You know, ain't done yet. Work ain't done. Still need, you know. And then he misses 180 because he rushes it again. I go, no.
You got out of the groove.
Got to be deliberate.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything. We don't do anything slow, but we control the pace. So get it where it needs to be, then go. And he gets 180 and he's, you know, then he celebrates and he misses 185 a couple times. But I'm like, okay, you just celebrated too much. But the other kid coming up behind him who did 125 last Friday.
Yeah.
This is Thursday that we're recording. So this is less than a week. This kid went 125, followed by 135 for 2. So the goal was, let's get 140 for 1. And he goes, I've been thinking about that thing you said every day. I've been trying to think 3 times a day about how excited I am to be here. And he said, I'm trying to, again, he's not like that hierarchy of learning thing. He's listening to what I told the other kids. I didn't even know he was listening. He's a brand new kid to me. I'm like, I haven't invested. I don't know how to get through to him or anything. I know very little about him. He's brand new, but he's like,
Funny how kids pick and listen to the little things you say as a coach.
yeah. But so he goes, I see him get 130 or 135. Easy. Like it looks like he could have done it for 5. And I'm like, okay, he's going to smash 140. He goes 140. Coach, what should I do? 145. And the bar it's getting faster. And you can see his technique is he's in between reps. He's watching like one of the older kids go and he's going, like you see him like miming.
Yeah,
He's watching what everyone else is doing.
he's
And
learning.
he's imitating them. He's tucking his scaps. He's pulling his shoulders back. He's like raising his hands and lowering them and thinking about where the bar will touch. He gets 160.
Wow.
And he can't lock out 165. Yeah, he just doesn't have triceps. We then go to 4-board. Well, a combination of he doesn't have triceps and the governor on his brain is just shutting him down. But we
Yep.
get to 4-board, he can't get the bar off the board with 165. But I said to him, like, you've been this strong the whole time. I didn't make you that strong in a week. But I said, like, that's just the difference of knowing what you're doing and taking the time to actually allow your body to feel okay doing it. And I said to him, the same thing of like, now think about that 160, that amount of weight and stress, like you're going to get paid so much more off of 160 than you would have if you just rushed and got stapled at 125 or 130. Like that's a higher paying job. That's how I talk to the kids is like, that's how I try and get them to understand. I'm like,
I like that.
I'm like, every rep you do, you have to pay for in fatigue.
Because Lou would say the stronger you get, the more volume is needed to maintain that strength. Meaning the more you have to mess with heavier weights.
Yeah. Yeah. But so I say it like, like you got to pay for the gas to get to that job. Make sure you're driving to the job that pays you handsomely to come back. I'm like, and we all want to be lazy. So we want to do the job that pays the most, takes the least gas to get there, and allows us to like rest the most during like you don't want to be on your feet working all day. You want to,
Exactly.
you hit your rep and then you go, kind of bring it back down and get paid on that next rep. I'm like, you want to make nothing but big time money decisions.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's like, that bridging the physical of what's going on and then the conceptual and like cognitive and technical. And that's all the stuff that's like hard to see within a book.
It exactly. That's why I had to go to see Louis and DM anybody Morris to get technical and the psychological training. That's how Charlie Francis absorbed all that stuff to see how they did it, the little cues and the way they approached it. That all matters to get the best out of these kids, man. It's art. That's the art of coaching. How can you do it and get them buy in and do it, conceptualize it and do it with intent? Like it's all got to come together. All got to come together, dude. Sprinting, jumping, running,
Yeah.
all come together. Exactly, man. I remember Maddie Kelly. She was the same way. But once I told her to lock in and visualize it. Now, Maddie Kelly she's one of those girls was like, what made her superpower was like, there's nothing I can't do. There's nothing's impossible. She goes, first day she come to the gym, she jumped 20. She goes, what's the record? 31? I'm getting that. I'm thinking like, no way, dude. No way. That girl worked her butt off and she got 31. And then she goes, what's the flying 10 record? 91. I'm gonna get that. I'm thinking like, no way. She worked her butt off. And it forced me to be in my game. Because she was like running the 113. It forced me to get in my game to get her there. Because I couldn't get her there. How good am I? And I would let her down. That's me letting her down. If I don't get her to that point and break the records, I'm letting her down. So I had to be on my game. So she hit it. and ran a 4.89 40. And then she goes, "Oh, what's the squat record? 365. Oh, well, what's the deadlift record? The deadlift was 345, the squat record at the time. Deadlift was 365. I'm getting those little by little, dude. I'm damn, she might get it. Then I remember when she got the 315, she just shot up. It was like 320, almost like overnight. It was like 320, 35, 345, 365. Damn, like you tied the record. And then she's like, I'm going for 400. I'm like, no way. But it made me, as a coach, study it and get on the now. Now I can get a 400-pound deadlift. If I have a girl that wants it, because I had the recipe and I had someone go through and do it. And all I needed someone that had the desire to do it. And she's like, I'm gonna now she hit 457. She's like, I'm going for 500 now. So that person is like, there's nothing stopping me. I'm getting whatever. I'm getting these astronomical numbers. And like Maddie Kelly, at one point I was like, you could actually, get the state record. And you could go in a contest. She goes, really? There's a contest for powerlifting? I said, yeah, like Louis Simmons. That's my guy. That's what he competed in. He powerlifted. And she's like, this is pretty cool. And then she fell in love with it. And she had the American record. She had the world record, but they didn't have two international judges there, though. She had that 457 deadlift. I was sick. I was like, and then it's on up in powerlifting.
Okay.
But the federation, I think it was US USPA when they went out of now. But at the time, it was USPA USA record, but it was actually the world record. And they announced it, but it didn't count because there's no international judges. But it's not up in powerlifting. It's on there.
Yeah.
I checked it. For her, no, it's for not overall, but for 18 years old, it was the Teen 3 world record.
I would call that. Yeah, I would call that. If no one is above her on open powerlifting,
no one was above her. That age group.
That's no yeah, and that's a world record.
Yeah.
Like, I hate that when
it was a funny I remember that contest. It was a mess. That I was telling them the weights. I go, she smoked 345 in the squat. I said, let's just go. It was third attempt. Let's go for let's go 5 pounds. Get 350 for a PR. Man, they must have got confused or didn't hear me. They put 367 on the bar. And I'm thinking like, damn, why does this look so damn heavy? It's like it's moving so slow, but she's grinding. She must have been a 10-second squat. She grinded out. I come to find out it was 367. I'm like, what? But that's the type of girl she is. She goes in the warm-up room. I'll never forget. There's probably about 200 people in this damn gym. It's called Power Build. I remember Louis would say, you win the meet in the warm-up room. And I was telling her this story, how some of his lifters, Louis, the West Side, would go in the warm-up room and they would warm up, and their warm-up would beat their openers. Their warm-up would beat the people's third attempts. And I said, one day you're going to do that. So she's in there warming up 225, like it's flying up. Like I don't have a tendo there, but it's got to be 0.8. And then whoop, and then everybody's like looking like, wait a minute. And then they start to one by one, they crowd around her. And then I go put 315 on there. We're warming up. Everybody's like, now they're like kind of not looking, they're like peeking out their corner eye. And I said, let's put 405. Now her warm up is beating people's third attempts. Boom, 405. They're like, what? And then she went out there and hit 457, dude. I was like, it was one of my greatest achievements as a coach. I couldn't believe it. But it was cool that Louis, and I always wanted to have something like that where Louis would have a lifter. His lifter was intimidating. When the meet in the warm room, that's what she did. She intimidated everybody there, and she went out there and grinded it out and won in the world and did it. I was like, I have a Louis Simmons story, anecdotal story, was cool, like the box and her winning in the warm up room, stuff like that. A sprinter getting down in that short amount of time, like Jordan Nichols did, and John Kerr. You're like, those people. I got my kids now that do that now, which is pretty cool. So I've always wanted to have. Now I always like Louis had people come from 2-3 hours to train with him. I have that now. I had a sprinter come from 3 hours away. My state championship sprinter Tatum Norris. I was at States. I'm filming it, and I'm like, the girl, her mom taps me on the shoulder. Go, she was kind of, we're kind of, she just kind of see. My daughter's running. I go, who is it? It's Tatum Norris. I said, Tatum Norris. I said, see my girl, Kayla O'Connor, who jumped 34.9 on the dust jump, which we had that controversy on the internet. Everybody could believe it. That was the one who I took from a 27 200 to a 24.5, and then she went from a 13.500 to a 11.8, so she could jump through it. But anyway, so I'm following this girl. Tatum goes, I go, yeah, I left the trainer one day. I didn't think she'd come, but she came 2 hours one way, dude. Bro, she got that state medal, bro. I was crying in tears because that was my goal, to get a state 100-meter champion. And at the same time, Dylan Simon, who I trained for 7 years, he was going to win a state title. Again, once I got him stronger, he started out as a young kid. Once I got his relative strength. Once I got his relative strength to 400, and he weighed 150, he vertical jumped 42 inches. Then he broad jumped 10. Then I know he had the force capabilities and the most explosive power to run fast. I just had to teach him how to run. And then he was flexible. And then he ran a 4.4 as a freshman. You know, I think he's going to be this D1 guy, but I've learned about the high school trainer. He switched the track. So it got to the point, Andre Williams was the high school stud. He played for the Giants and the Boston College. Heisman Trophy runner-up. He had the 100-meter record, 10.7, 10.7. I said, I'm going to get that. Years ago, I'd say, that's damn impossible. But now I'm like, let's go for it, dude. He ran 10.54. He ran 10.57, dude. He was at that same meet. Tatum won it. He was going to win E-Fall, started the finals. I went from tears of joy to tears of sadness, because I would have had 2 100-meter finalists in the same champion in the same year, dude. But it was just like, now once the kids can believe, they see someone do it in the gym now, like he was running 24 miles, now they believe it. It's like, if they see someone jump 40, now they believe they can do it. So I had it. Now it's like clockwork. It's like the environment they're in. Cyrus was slow as hell. Now he's talking about running a 9.0 that's slow. Like those people are fast. Now this is someone that was slower than molasses, slower than the slop. He's talking about, like, if I don't get below 9, I'm trash. That's how Benny's guys are. If I'm jumping below 40, I'm trash. And like Westside, if you're not squatting the 9,000 pounds, it's like you're a joke. So I wanted to create Westside in this athletic environment, and that's how you have it too, Benny. It just that, but so these strength coaches outside our walls, they think this stuff is fake. It's not real. It's unimaginable. It's impossible to reach, So they have no role models in their gym. Occasionally they have a freak, but then that's the freak, because their systems don't drive people to those numbers. But me and you, so I put these numbers up there. People they hate on it, but it's like, hey, Lou was doing this 30 years ago. Huntington was doing this 30 years ago. This is possible? You have a right system. Your system is locked in, Charlie. Your system is locked in. These numbers, like you said earlier, I'm seeing reoccurring numbers. The faces, though, year after year after year after year.
How many state champions have you had?
I looked it up yesterday. I think it's 6. Natalie just won. I didn't post it yet. She won the indoor state championship. She has 3 to her name. No, she has 4 to her name. It was Natalie Walters won the long jump, triple jump. The long jump 3 times, triple jump once. Spencer Hay won the high jump. Allison Vanek won the pole vault, set the state record in pole vault. And then Tatum won the 100-meter dash. I had a ton of silver medalists. Lindsay Bauer, long jumps, triple jump, silver medalist. Reichenbach. I mean, there's a bunch of silver medals I wish I had, but now I think if I have the right kid that's locked in, I could probably get more. I just had to refine my system to the point where I can get more now. Like now the Natalie's she's the first. She's now it's rolling. Now I've had state medalists that actually last 14 out of 16 years. COVID was 1 year. So I take that 1 week before COVID and the COVID year, I had 16 I think 15, 16, 14 and 16 years out of state medalist in track and field. So how can I be a speed coach? I can't get nobody in the States. Yeah, that's my. It's like Louis Simmons. How can I be a strength coach, a powerlifting coach? I can't get nobody in the national qualify for nationals. So
With the right,
exactly. I mean, nowadays if you get one good person, you're anointed the king of the mountain. It's like I want to see what you can do with the worst athlete. Can you take someone bad and make them good, and can you do it over and over and over again? Once these kids leave, I'm in a rebuilding process. I ain't gonna lie. Like my cool cook, my baseball player. I took him from a 7'2" to a 6'4", 60. He beat Dylan Simon in a 100-meter dash, and I'm in a 60-meter dash. Excuse me, twice. And Dylan was running 10:57. Dylan slacked off at his lifting. This is how important lifting is. Cole Swick loves lifting. He deadlifted 585 and squatted about 4. So he kept doing, and he could jump and touch 11.7. So he beat him, dude. And then the other thing too is he's gone now. Dylan's old now. So I'm not gonna roll over and die. I'm gonna get new number. I'm gonna build new ones. I'm gonna build a new Cole Cook. I'm gonna build a new Nick Sparks. I'm gonna build a new Maddie Kelly. I just built Kayla Robinson. I just posted her on my story today. She runs track at Widener University, D3, and she had her for 2 months, dude. Louis had a talks about a hectathlete he had. Never gave the name to me, but she never qualified for nationals. And she did all this training, all this stuff, and she was always injured. Kayla come to me. She's a heptathlete. Man, came in here. First of all, she came in she was pretty strong, 300-pound deadlift. But since I had Maddie Kelly, I knew how to get her deadlift stronger. So she hit 385. I ran out of time. I had another month, she would hit 400 pounds. With my next 400-pound deadlifter. She smoked 385. I should have did that day had I known. Their squat was about 300 pounds. She benched 175. I'm competitive. She goes, Byrd, like, what's your box jump record? I go, Natalie's. Natalie, she does 57, which is pretty high for a damn girl. And she goes, Byrd, you shouldn't have told me that because I'm not leaving until I get this. And she freaking struggled on 51, hit it. Struggled on 54, hit it, and hit 57. I couldn't believe it. Then but she couldn't do this out of that strength, the max strength though. She was not, wouldn't be, because she's a heavy girl. She's 170 pounds. She hit 10. She hit 10-1. She goes, what's the record? I said, Natalie, and Shannon Todd. Shannon's another heptathlete I had her 2 months, same thing. Shannon Todd, I took her from a 145 squat to a 320 squat, and a 185 deadlift to a 320 deadlift. Vertical went up from 21-28. Bar jump went up a foot. She killed it, but COVID took her year away. She would have won. But Kayla, I took a whole second off her hurdle time. I added a whole 1.5 on her triple jump. And then her long jump went up another 8 inches. You get points for these in the heptathlon. Like, these are, good in the shot put. She was always a good shot putter. Now she's ranked 12th in the nation, but she hasn't done it since the first meet. She won 4 gold medals in this meet, dude. Athlete of the meet, all that stuff. She might place 3rd or 4th in the nation now. So that's like a Louis Simmons story. She never qualified for national. Now I got her. I did the conjugate system with her. Rose all the levels up. Taught her to run. Taught her to jump. Wrote her strength up. Now she's about to be a national medalist and All-American, which is pretty cool. Because that's what Louis, I always wanted to have that story like Louis had, a heptathlete that was dialed in. Most of my heptathletes come twice a week. She came actually 3 or 4 times a week. And I ran the whole system. I had it down to a T. Almost kind of, I didn't change what Louis did. I just did it my way. Similar to what he did. And I got the similar results, dude. She broke my triple jump record. She jumped almost 41 feet. With her technique it made it a little better, but wasn't. I didn't have it long enough to get the technique I wanted, just off of power and strength, dude. So, once some girl people leave, I'm gonna have some more ones. I will promise you. You will see. Like Goodman was following me. Knows that Goodman. He's Byrd. I've seen you. I've been following for a while. I've been seeing the Maddie Kellys. I've been seeing the Cole Cooks. I've been seeing the Dylan Simon. Now I see the Marquez Wimberly. I've been now, I see it that he's followed me. He's seen the new different names and faces. He's seen over the years evolution. You see me over the year. You see, and my buddy, like when my kids leave, they go, Bird, what you got? Who you got now? Who you got now? Like DJ Kelly went to Toledo, or Chris Occasion, my line that dumped and dunked the ball 315. He got his full ride to Toledo. It's just, everyone's like, who do you got now? So I'm excited to take these younger kids and bring them to those levels. I got these younger kids coming up that are just dialed in. Like, I'm trying to turn them into Dylan Simons, and them to the Marquise Wimberleys, and them. Going back before that, I had Saquon Barkley and just Jahan Dotson, and Chuck DeBillio, who went to Princeton and wrote the Ivy League record. Like, I had those kids. Like, I'm trying to build. That's what when I first got Marquise, I said, "You're gonna be the next Saquon." That's exactly what I said to him.
Yeah.
You go to the next one.
Again, one of the things that, like, as you say some of this stuff, where again, I think people are tempted to kind of take it the wrong way.
Correct.
You spend so much time talking about kids no one knows yet, and you've worked with household names, and they get no oxygen in the conversation because you're so excited about what you're doing right now.
The kids that are the kids that are gone. Like Louis says, I can't worry about who's gone and who's coming. I have to worry about I'm laser focused on what is here now. Who is here now? I can't worry about who's gone and who's been there. I just gotta figure out I could get those people the here now to where the people have gone. And I'm laser focused on. That's why you don't hear me talk about the people that I've had. It's just I'm laser focused on the kids I got now. If I'm not like that, I just can't push the needle to where I want to be, And like that's what I'm doing. Like, and I won't even rehash and remind people. That's all locked in on the kids I have now. I'm locked in. So like Marquez, he's one I had for 7 years. Dylan has 7 years. If they have him that long, the sky's the limit, dude. The sky's the limit. I got Maddie Kelly was one I had for years. I was locked in. Once she had what you call it? Oh my God, she had a disease of the nervous system disease. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But then she gets powerlifting. She couldn't run no more. So I said, let's lock in. Let's get these records. I'm trying to get records. I'm trying to get world records. If there's a record, I'm trying to get it. Like touchdowns per game, yards per. I'm like number. I'm like Louis. Like Louis loved numbers. You know that. He wanted his numbers. I want numbers, not only in the gym, but I want them outside. I want the rushing record. I want the 100-meter time record. I looked it up the day. I have trained at 31 different high schools record holders and colleges combined. 31 different high schools, and not many colleges, like 4 or 5, but 31. Someone has a record at that school. Like suddenly I have their 100-meter, 200, 300, 200, 200, 300, 400. Long jump, triple, high jump, Whitehall, Saquon Barkley's high school. I have mostly girls. I have the whole girl side. Danny Smith has 100, 200, the 400. Alvana Jones is the long triple high jump. Even distance, Emily Brand has the 1 mile, 2 mile. Like, that's what Kayla Connor has, Jim Thorpe. Like, I just go on and on and on. Now I'm trying to get these college records. Like Aiden Tobin with Uroscience. He got the college records, the conference record. Then I got Alex Lee just ran. She went to Patriot League. She's third all time. I've said we're going for when she left, I said we're going for the school record. She came in like maybe 8th or 9th. I say when you leave that school and turn that tassel, you're gonna have the record and be the best all time. That's my mentality, and be the champion. And that's what she's third now already as freshman year. So I want these records. I mean, as many when they go to these schools, I want, like when Nick went to Temple, he had the 5-10-5 record. He might have had the squat 660 pounds. Maybe he was up there, dude. So like I want my numbers, dude. Like just like Whitney says, I need my numbers. I want these records. I'm not done till I'll be doing this for another 20 years. I want my records up. But the sad part is that there's football coaches around me, the travel coaches around me. There's very few that recognize and give me credit. They want to discredit me because it's so foreign and obscure. It took me 6 years to get the one coach's to like thank me. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
I had 8 record holders, but it took 8 years for him to actually thank me. Dylan High School, they resent me. I didn't have the girl record holder, boy record holder. They just they don't give me no respect. It makes no sense, dude. It makes no sense. When those records were stood for them records that have been broken, they have stood for 20 years. Natalie Walters High School, her jump record she broke was 40-year-old record. Now, her coaches, they love me, but that's not the case at other schools. 40-year-old record, dude. That record might not be broken ever. Her record she went through, it might not ever be broken, dude. So like it's just like Louis' records. Some of the records might never be broken. That's what I'm trying to get. And they see these flags here. I think I said kids are probably about I want to say about 130 colleges, over the doing it 20 years, and they autograph their name on there. Some of them got it more than others, but like, I'm trying to get one. I'm trying to get my goal is to get people in the SEC and the ACC and the Big Ten and stuff, and all variety D3 all across the country. I want to go to Colorado, Ole Miss, where else? No, Northwestern, Penn State, Iowa, So it's been a year and years and years where I've just accumulated. One softball girl, Sophia, I had she swung. I had her a freshman. She swung 80 miles an hour off the tee as a freshman. Her coach, Rob Cruz, he's her batting coach. He tested. He's like a scientist like me. He tests all the time. He's testing these numbers. He's got the Rapsodo. He's got the Diamond Kinetics. He's like she swung at a lesson. He just got up, went silent, and left the room. Because he comes back and he goes, everybody stopped. The girl's like, what's going on? He goes, do it again. Boop. He left again. He goes, he was speechless. He got out. He got the room and he called Alabama. He called Florida. He said, I got this girl. You need to start looking at. And now the girl is a beast. She has high expectations. She grinded, squat strong, 300-pound squatter, deadlifter. She's in Oklahoma now and early enrolled now. So like, there's a Oklahoma flag sitting there right there. So there's stories like that. Like, I had 4 girls swinging over 80 miles an hour, 5 or 6. I had a softball coach tell me, those are fake numbers. No, this is unheard of. I was at the showcase. I was at the showcase. The coach goes, okay, the one girl, Bree Peck, she's a Virginia Tech's best player, Bree Peck, plays outfield and pitches. Swung 81. Bird, we got to throw it out. That's fake. The coaches won't even. That's unheard of. We'll use 78. I said, no, this is what I do. I've seen this before. So like, I enjoy having numbers that people do not believe can happen. They're just unfathomable. Like Maddie Kelly did in 457. Dylan run 10:57 around here is unfathomable. That's the all-time record in my area. Unfathomable. But like, I want people to be like, damn, that's like my kid Noah. He just jumped on the OVR vertical jump 40.3. He went to his high school and showed the strength coach, and the coach goes, "Oh my god, that's fake! Like, no, there's a defect in that thing. That's not real."
I can assure you there is not.
Oh, of course, we know it's not. he has the things. He thought mine was broken, dude. But that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it like Louis would say. I have it on my business checks. Louis would say, I like to have ordinary beings do extraordinary things, and that's
Yeah. Well, that's where we're gonna end it for today. It's simply here.
Oh, me too.
Yeah. But
I'm gonna plug my social media real quick. You can see me. You can find me. I'm available for questions and stuff. I got the Byrd Sports certification. Y'all want to do that too? It's like a deep dive and all this stuff. And I cut out the mistakes. And I teach you all the mistakes, and you learn these complicated books quickly. And then, so you can hit me up on that. Also, I love the OVR, by the way. I can't throw a discount code out anymore, but I'm gonna say, if you want one, you should buy it. This man is a genius for doing it. Get the velocity and get that jump. It'll save you. I was training a track team. I secure my jump mat, heavy jump. Man, I had a little sack, jumped out there, my little sacks, and dropped up the OVRs out there. It was a blessing, man. So I thank you for that. And then so if you want to hit me on Twitter, Byrd Sports PF, Byrd Sports Performance on Instagram and Facebook. I'm easy to get a hold of. I like talking shop. I wish I'm trying to get in this other network. This me. There's other coaches. I just can't. They don't want to talk shop with me. But I would love to trade secrets with. But it is what it is.
Yeah, well, we'll get you known. So yeah, we're definitely. I'm gonna have you back. Probably again and again.
I'm gonna have you on we could do like a round robin. I'm gonna have you on round 2 as well too. I would say we could have had about 50 podcasts people would have listened to.
Oh yeah, we've recorded several that people.
I wish we had it recorded. I wish we had some of this stuff recorded.
We got a lot of stuff that's recorded. It's just Instagram notes and whatnot.
Exactly.
No, we both got podcasts now. We'll be better about recording some of that stuff. But yeah, thanks again for coming on. Stay on after I hit stop here. But yeah, so thanks again for coming on and helping me do the first one, because I've been saying for about 10 years that I was going to do a podcast. So
I think it's difficult. It's like all the questions you ask. How do you ask the right questions? It's not. It's kind of. I was freaked out.
Yeah. It's also that and I'll hit stop.
Yeah.